All right. So, oh, we got someone else. Alicia's here too. Cool. What's up, Alicia? So, we got a new friend, Jeremy here. Jeremy Loeb. Check out his YouTube. Definitely go subscribe. Make sure subscribe and to hit the notification button that has like the big alerts so you can get all of his lives. He does lots of cool videos, reviews on vegan videos and debates and stuff. He's been watching some of my videos on his show recently, which has been fun because I've just been hammering out content and I haven't gone back to anything. And we watched the post first debate Garland Farms video where I had Garland Farms and Jason John Swartz they were live, just completely gloating as if they had won the debate that we were in. And so this was between the first and the second debate. And I just went up on their podcast, on Jason's podcast, and just roasted these dudes. But it was really funny. But anyway, so Jeremy was on the show a couple weeks ago, and we talked a little bit about the two-party paradigm and how kind of the worst thing we got going or the worst thing the animals have going is the fact that vegans are libs, like libtards. Like that really screws the animals politically, basically. Like it's a dumb political thing where people will not even consider veganism because it goes against their party's beliefs. And Jeremy, he said, he's like, I identify as a liberal. And I was like, cool. Because you seem like a real open-minded dude, and like we are like very similar as far as like all the arguments we use. Like you just watching you watch my videos, I'm like, oh, this dude like knows his shit, and like there's not many people that can just go, bam, 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 bam with people. So it seems like, you'd be very open to what we're all into, or at least checking it out. But it's I'm going to try and get you out of the two-party paradigm thing. I'm going to tell you ahead of time, just because I just feel like it is the biggest thing that is keeping humanity enslaved and the animals enslaved right now. Neither party is trying to get rid of animal ag. Neither party is, trying to get rid of the subsidies that go to the meat and dairy industry. And if, as vegans, this is our core belief system, in saving animals and trying to change the world for a better place for animals. And from within, it's not going to happen in the two-party paradigm because they designed it to be divisive, 50-50, basically. And that's we're never gonna get along when they present the system, when the game that's set up is set up like that, where we're just, oh, fuck libs or fuck conservatives, like I've been watching it ever since I stepped out in like 2011. I stepped out of the two-party paradigm, and I've been watching it ever since. And it's just, it's the definition of insanity. So I just, so anyway,
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, let me just say real quick, and I'm sure we'll get into some juicy disagreements and stuff, and I don't want to make this sound like
I doubt we will.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I'm guessing that we probably agree a lot more than we disagree on this. And like actually almost everything that you said, I agree with.
Yeah.
And the only difference is that, well, maybe the difference is that I come from a background where I was real steeped in politics. So I used to work in radio and I covered politics, state politics specifically. I was always like very interested in politics. Probably my interest was sparked by Hunter Thompson, who would probably like be awesome. Like right in line with you.
No, we love Hunter over here.
Yeah, in many ways, like gonzo journalism. And, I just find myself agreeing with liberals and Democrats more than I agree with Republicans, and I reject completely what most Republicans stand for. And that's probably where, maybe there be some divisiveness.
Well,
But
I grew up a liberal for sure.
yeah.
It's
So
just
the only
left.
thing
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that I feel like I'm working within the system, hoping to change the Democratic Party to be more inclusive to animals. And I feel like the Democratic Party does do better on various issues, not all of them for sure, but when it comes to respecting human rights, and I feel like we agree on that. Like
Yeah.
it's really the same reason why I'm vegan. I don't like people getting bullied, by a powerful force. And I see that a lot of the like neoconservatives are just straight up bullies
Yeah.
with people that they disagree with, namely, like very most obviously would be like trans people right now or gay people, just people that are different from them that they don't understand. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, go ahead.
All the trans stuff, it's a CIA op. It's it's the people that set up the system to be the two-party paradigm system. They have to, fuel the fire of divisiveness with things, and they will bring up, they'll just invent non-issues and force them into the limelight, and all the idiots fall for it, that are either, oh, it's just fucking, it's the liberals' faults, and it's the conservatives' faults, and it's this never-ending outward pointing thing when we
Muddy the
should all
water.
be inward pointing. Go ahead, Ariane.
Yeah, muddying the waters.
Yeah. Yeah. So like all this, like if it's reported on in the news or it's popular, in, the community, if people are talking about it, and like all this, oh, the trans dancers, dancing for kids, and like all this, like, is that really a problem? Because allegedly there's a lot more, SA going on with teachers and stuff in schools than actually, like, there's just all these non-issues.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
why stepping, like kind of like leaving that thought process is almost like it's like integral to really like understanding what's going on, and how we've been brainwashed since birth to worship this two-party paradigm, and we're not actually standing up for what we believe in. We're just standing up for whatever the party believes in. And I get the whole like, well, the libs, care about the people more, and the conservatives are just these rich assholes that want to just like, take away welfare. It's like they've been arguing about this stuff since I was a kid, and I'm like, I'll be 50 in a couple of years. My dad, they were arguing about this stuff when he was a kid, and that's how ingenious they've set things up to where we're never going to get along. We're never going to, there's always whoever gets, whatever, like if like the liberal president starts going in the right direction, guess what? New president comes in, it's this never ending bullshit fight going back and forth forever, but because they set it up that way. So we get sucked into it, and we're fighting with our neighbors instead of fighting for our freedoms, taking them away from government. But, I think we're really close on a lot of this stuff, and I don't think we're going to really have any disagreements. I think, I mean,
Well,
we may, but like, I don't think like things are going to get heated or anything. But this is
no,
just
I don't either.
Yeah.
The thing that I am not really convinced is that this is some sophisticated plot. Like, yes, there are definitely, and maybe we'll get into that. There definitely are people who pull the strings, and definitely, like, if you're a liberal, you can see that it happens on Fox News. Probably if you're a conservative, you can see that it happens on whatever, MSNBC or some TV station. Sure.
Super
But I mean,
Bowl halftime, like it happens everywhere.
yeah. And I get like grown men asking me things about women's sports. Like they give a shit about women's sports because there's a few trans people in women's sports. Like to me, that's a definite symptom of brainwashing. For you to be coming to me to asking me like, do I care about women athletes? Like, you don't care about that. Anything about it. It's
It's just a
ridiculous.
talking point. It's a divisive talking point that gets handed to every generation that goes by. It's an obvious, there is definitely intelligence behind it. There is, satanic forces behind it. But anyway, so after being kind of red pilled by this guy Ron Paul, who I was a liberal, but he was a conservative, and he was running as a Republican, but he was really a libertarian, and a libertarian even leaning anarchist. So I was kind of red pilled by that guy, and then Mark Passio red pilled me into being an anarchist from being like a minarchist. Ron Paul got me into minarchism, which is small government, tiny controllable government. But we have a government, like a federal government, but we keep control of it. We keep control of it, which is bullshit, really. And so Mark Passio red pilled me into being a full on anarchist, where, and this is kind of his best piece. It's quite long. We probably won't watch the whole thing. We'll probably do it over several, maybe 3 or 4 shows, because it is very long, and there will be probably discussion. But go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, like, what's the practical application of this? Is it just not voting? Is it not engaging in arguments that are destructive between liberal and conservative? Because, okay, see you, Alicia. Because I don't really necessarily think that the two-party system is good, but I don't want to cede my power to the people who I think that are against what I stand for. So maybe it's just what you think is just breaking out of the mindset that I have, that there are these people that are against what I stand for. Because at the moment, I reject that, because I can just see it with my own eyes. But anyway. Maybe
this will explain a lot of things.
Okay.
And then if you have questions, I have, like, this is just his way of explaining it. We all have our different ways of explaining it. But this got me into, like, spirituality, like there's a lot going on. It's like dudes, like 20 years of this dude reading into occult stuff, and looking at everything kind of, and like and it's real fun stuff, and I think you'll be into it even if you don't believe in it completely. It's definitely like food for thought. Cool. Very interesting stuff.
Is everybody in here, like, is everybody sort of in agreement with all this stuff, or what?
My podcast is generally vegans that are into natural law. And Mark eventually became vegan, and has been for now a long time, but you'll be into it. It's cool stuff.
It's about freedom.
It's about freedom.
I mean, honestly, if the conclusion of any ideology is to not harm animals, I'm kind of down.
Not any sentient being.
Right,
exactly. Yeah. Whoa. Steve.
Okay. I want to say thanks to each and every one of you for being here today. It's going to be a great day. I'm going to go through what I consider to be the very heart of my material. And people ask me a lot.
Hey, just pause real quick.
You put out a lot of material on your website.
I want to say he's at an Omni Hotels, who is right now being targeted by a national campaign to drop foie gras. So go fuck yourself, Omni Hotels. Drop foie gras. Carry on. Continue.
That's awesome.
What is the main thing? If you had to tell me the main thing that I should check out, if I check out nothing else that's up there, what would it be? And I always tell them the same thing. It's the material on natural law. If nothing else, that's the material that you need to understand deeply. So that's what we're going to be covering here today in an extended presentation format. I want to go through a few things before we actually get started. So I call this section Before We Begin. And the word begin is actually important here because that's really what this presentation is actually about. It's initiation. This is an initiation into really, really deep esoteric material that has been hidden from humanity for millennia. So I just want to ask people before we get started, how many of you are new or relatively new to my work? By a show of hands, please. That's excellent. This is great. That is great news. I am so glad to hear that. Okay. What I actually didn't want is to come here and talk to a bunch of people who are already totally familiar with my work and have already heard it. So this is great. Okay. How many of you here today feel that the human condition and life on earth for humanity right now is tolerable just the way that it is? By a show of hands. That's also pretty good, because if that was the case, I was going to say there's nothing for you here today. There's the door. Okay. So that's good. We're all hungry for change. One of the big complaints I hear about my work when I check in on forums or something or read some YouTube comments, many people will say, there's nothing new here. I've heard this before somewhere else. This person covers this. I've read this in this book. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have news for you. There is nothing new here. I am not going to present anything new. I'm not going to present anything that has not actually been in existence and will continue to be in existence. I'm not making up new material. I call myself, I would refer to myself, Art said it the other day, actually yesterday when we were having dinner. He said, I consider you an aggregator of material. And I love that term. I love that description of what I do. I am an aggregator. I bring things together into a tapestry and then help to explain it in simple and easy to understand terms so that people can readily absorb it, take it in, and then do something with that information. So you will not be seeing or hearing anything new here today. Okay, as the old saying goes in all of the old mystery traditions, there is nothing new under the sun. And what that phrase actually means, many people don't know what that phrase means. It means that the truth, it is singular and eternal. Truth has always been here among us, and it will always be here. It is our perception that must be aligned with it. So there's nothing new you're going to hear today. Okay, these are eternal truths that have always been here among us. Another aspect I want to cover before we get started is about my presentation style. This is another thing that I get a lot of complaints about, and it's something that I have no intention of changing. Okay, my presentation style has been described by some as extremely intense and at times even combative. This is a word many people will use to describe my presentation style. Some of you here today are very likely to be angered by some of the things you may hear me say during the duration of this seminar. And I say, so be it. That's okay. If you get angry, that's okay. The fact of the matter is that truth itself, by its very nature, is belligerent. And I'll actually be putting up a quote to that nature later on in the presentation. The reason truth is belligerent is because it actually is at war. It's at war with a lie. It's at war with deception. It's at war with mind control. So truth can be belligerent. And many people don't want to hear it when they first encounter it. So I tell people all the time, I don't do this. I don't present this information, okay, to be liked. I don't do this to make friends, okay? I'm not interested in making a whole bunch of new friends. If it happens, that's great, okay? But that's not the reason I do what I do. I don't do this to be popular. I don't do this to make money. It's not a popularity contest. Telling people many things that they don't want to hear is not going to make you popular, or it's not going to make you a whole lot of new friends, okay? So those aren't the reasons I do what I do. To be honest, and I tell people this, and sometimes they get upset by just hearing this, I don't even really want to do this, okay? I don't want to do this with my life. I don't want to do this with my time, okay? As I already know, understand, and live the information I'm going to present. So I get this. I know this, okay? I don't need to keep going over this over and over and over again for my own entertainment, okay? The reason that I actually do this is because I recognize that in a time of such overwhelming ignorance of this critical information, this information which is capable of saving humanity from its current condition, all right? The fact that I do already understand this information places me in a position of moral obligation and responsibility. That's why I do what I do. I'm in a position of moral obligation to speak this information to other people in an effort to help to get them to understand it and live it as well. And that is the reason I do this. Every person here today who wishes to take real world value, practical value from this seminar here today, I'm going to ask them to make a deliberate and conscious effort to do two things. The first is try to set aside, to the extent that you are capable of doing so, your perceptions of me as the presenter, okay? And this includes things like how you think I look, how you think I dress, the sound of my voice, my mannerisms, etc. Try to set those things aside to the extent that you're able to do it. And I know that's difficult for some. And I say this because paying attention to such trivialities will detract your own mental focus away from the information that is being presented today. And that's the worst thing that could happen, because it's the information that is important, not me. Try to ignore me and focus on the content. All right. The second thing I ask people to try to do is to be consciously aware of any of your own impulses that you may have here today, to immediately reject the information that is being presented in this seminar based solely upon your own initial emotional reaction, your initial emotional response to this information. Okay. This is a logical fallacy. Okay. You cannot think with the emotions. So if you hear something you don't like or that angers you, that's okay. Feel the emotion, but don't just immediately say that can't be true. And don't believe me either. It's about checking it. It's about a process of truth discovery. It's about doing your own due diligence and actually researching this material. Okay. But if you try to gauge the veracity, meaning the truthfulness of this information solely based upon how it makes you feel when hearing it, you are committing a logical fallacy. Okay. So I ask people to try as much as possible to suspend immediate reactions of disbelief. Okay. And saying, no, I don't want to accept that. No, it can't be true, based on how something may make you feel that you hear today. That's very important to keep in mind. And lastly, this information, the entire seminar, is a tapestry. Okay. It's like pieces of a huge jigsaw puzzle. All right. It is meant to be seen and taken as a whole in its entirety. Now, I know I'm asking a lot here too, because it's going to be a long day. Okay. And my goal here, my work here, is to keep your interest and your attention and your focus throughout the entire course of this seminar. And that's a challenging thing to do. But what I'm asking people is, you have to try to see it as a whole, because if you took the time to be here and you gave a monetary donation to be here, I'm highly recommending that you stay for the whole duration of the seminar. There's a reason for that. You're only going to get the full tapestry, especially if you're new to my work, by hearing this information in its entirety. Okay. So if you don't do that, you'll probably not recognize the patterns, which is what this is all about. That's what this day is all about, pattern recognition. Okay. That are inherent to this tapestry of information. And more likely than not, you'll have wasted the time that you took to be here today and wasted the money that you spent to be here today. So I don't want anybody to waste their time and their money and their attention. And I don't think you do either. So that's why I'm asking people, stay for the whole thing. You'll get the maximum value out of this seminar if you stay for its duration. So with that having been said, let's jump into the material. This presentation is called Natural Law, the Real Law of Attraction, and How to Apply It in Your Life. And I emphasize that term, real law of attraction. Many people will be familiar with the New Age variants of the so-called law or laws of attraction. And this is going to differ quite widely from what people have heard in the New Age community and in the New Age movement regarding what the law or laws of attraction are. These are the real laws of attraction you're going to be hearing today and hopefully understanding today. So let's start in. The first section is about teachability. The teachability of the student, okay? How does a student place themselves in the best position to learn? An individual's teachability, or their ability to learn by way of being taught by someone else, is extremely dependent upon the open-mindedness or closed-mindedness of the individual being taught. Low teachability derives from arrogance and rigid skepticism. But it also derives, low teachability also derives from naivete and gullibility. High teachability, on the other hand, derives from a balance between healthy skepticism and an open-minded willingness to learn and change. So we don't want rigidly skeptical people, okay, that don't have an open mind at all. And we don't want naive and gullible people that will accept everything they're told. We want to strike a balance between these two modes. This is called a teachability bell curve, okay? And down here is the mental state of the student, whether they are, and it goes from arrogance, cynicism, skeptical nature, a teacher, a student, and then up to being trusting, then being gullible, and then being outright naive. Okay, so that's the whole spectrum of teachability. The best position to learn is up here at the top of the bell curve. This means you will learn the most if you are here. And that means you're in the balance between teacher and student. It means that you're somewhat skeptical and you're also somewhat trusting. It means that you're able to hold a proposition in your mind without accepting it or rejecting it immediately. It means you will consider the information with an open mind, okay, somewhat trustingly, but also somewhat skeptically. All right. That's going to be the mental state we want to attempt to keep during the duration of this seminar. And therefore you will be in the best position to learn. Of course, as we already said, the poorest positions to learn, the things that, if you're in these mind states and arrogance and rigid skepticism and naivete and gullibility, you're not going to take very much away from this seminar. Okay. So we want to remain at the top of that bell curve if at all possible. Human beings should consider with great care where their information comes from, the source for the information. And this is because by refusing to present certain information and by influencing people to dismiss, to dissuade them from looking into certain information because they're telling you that it's unimportant or unnecessary to consider, many modern institutions like media, like so-called education institutions, are seeking to actually control human perceptions, or let's call it outright what it really is, to control the mind, okay? And therefore to limit what human beings may even come to understand, and therefore by limiting what they are coming to understand, they're actually limiting what they're able to do, what they're able to change, what they're able to create in the world, okay? So you have to be skeptical of where your information comes from. And that's why I tell people at the very beginning in my lectures, do not believe me. The worst thing you could do is believe what I'm telling you. You need to look into it for yourself. And most of all, you need to do personal introspection to really feel inside of yourself whether this information resonates with truth. Everybody has that intuitive capacity. That also has to be turned on and engaged and used. All right? If anybody is coming to this seminar from the perspective of modern, organized, institutional bodies, meaning political thought, political agendas, political organizations, religion, religious thought, religious organizations. I'm talking about organized religion here, okay? What I call scientism, not real science, but scientism, science as set up by institutional bodies to be rigidly skeptical belief systems that blot out anything that could possibly say anything to the contrary of their pre-existing beliefs. I call that scientism. Okay. And of course, the New Age movement, which you could group that in with religion. It's just it's for those who don't fall into the religious mindset. This is an alternative religion proposed for them, and they call it the New Age movement. And I tell people, please don't think this is going to concur with any of these belief systems, with any of these boxes for consciousness. This presentation is going to shatter these boxes. It stands outside of all of these because these are limiters for perception and thought. They want to place everything in a box, say nothing outside of this box is fit for human consumption, so do not go there. And as a result, they act as a mind control influence. The other and biggest limiter of the human perceptions and the mind, and ultimately of our behavior, is money itself. If you want to talk about the biggest religion, if these other religions aren't big enough and powerful enough for you, there's the one that is the ultimate power in the world, the ultimate religion, the God of this world, if you will. Okay? So what I'm basically saying here is if you're already in a mindset approaching the, let's call it the discovery of reality or the exploration of reality from any of these perspectives, you will be sorely disappointed here today by what you're going to hear, because the information here falls well outside of any of these institutional limiters for consciousness, okay? The requirements for creating change and the role of knowledge. Let's talk about these concepts for a moment. Human beings everywhere say that they want certain things in their life, and they say that they want certain things to be present for all humanity, okay? We say we want certain conditions to be present for ourselves and our species as a whole. And we say we want things such as happiness, health, peace, prosperity, freedom, etc. And all these things are great things to aspire to. And we say we want them. Most people will say and tell you we want these things, all right? However, I don't really feel that they're truly being honest with themselves, okay? They'll say they want them, but then when you tell them, well, those aren't automatic conditions. They don't just magically manifest, okay? There are requirements for obtaining these conditions, okay? And people wouldn't say they want these conditions if these conditions were already omnipresent, right? They're saying that they want something because they don't have it at all, or at least in fullness, right? So when you tell them there's requirements for obtaining them, many people will say, oh, well, I may not be willing to go there. I may not want to exert that much effort. And they believe that somehow they're going to magically get these things, right? Well, this is what the real laws of attraction are about. It's explaining conditions that you want don't just automatically manifest by thinking of them or just having a feeling about them. This is a new age deception. There are requirements for obtaining the conditions that we say we want. Requirement exists in nature. It does exist. If you want something to be different than the way that it already is, than the default conditions, then requirement exists. If you're okay with things being the way that they are now, requirement doesn't exist. There are no requirements to creating change. You just accept the default conditions the way they are now and go on with your existence and accept it's going to be this way and possibly get worse. But if you want real change to happen, requirements exist. And this is what many New Age teachers will not tell you, or they'll outright deny that requirements exist for creating real change. Specific requirements exist in order for human beings to obtain the conditions that they say they want. If the requirements for obtaining those conditions are not met, those conditions do not just magically manifest by magical means automatically. That's not how it works, folks. And that bursts a lot of people's bubble right off the bat. This is a key concept to understand. So what are these requirements? We need to know certain things. Knowledge is required. Knowledge that will spur us to action. That's what's required. Okay? Since human beings as a species do not already have the things that they say they want. And again, at least not in fullness. If we want to split hairs, we could say we have a modicum of what we may say that we want, but we don't have it in the fullness that we will say that we want it, especially societally, globally. Okay? So since we don't already have these things, it follows logically that the knowledge of the requirements to obtaining these things, okay, either must be absent. They are not, the knowledge is not present anywhere. Or if it is present, if that knowledge for obtaining those things, the requirements for obtaining those things, if that knowledge is present, then it must be willfully being ignored. It is here, and yet people aren't paying attention to it. They aren't taking it in and accepting it and doing anything with that knowledge. So they're ignoring it because it's uncomfortable. As long as this knowledge continues to remain either unknown or ignored, the manifestation of the desired conditions that we say that we want is impossible. Cannot happen. It is an impossibility for it to magically, automatically manifest without the requirements being met. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. What are these requirements? What is this knowledge? This knowledge is occulted, meaning hidden. Okay, now, how many people here came here today thinking that they were going to hear information about the occult by a show of hands? Okay, about half the room. Good. Okay, for the rest of the people, that may come as a shock. But what you have to understand right off the bat is that the word occult, it's simply derived from Latin, the Latin adjective occultus. Occultus in Latin means hidden, hidden from sight. And it's derived from the Latin noun oculus, which means eye. Okay? The word ocular in English means related to the eye or related to sight or vision. So what the occult is something, it is a body of knowledge that has been hidden away for a specific reason. And we're going to get into what that reason is. Okay, so from the term oculus or eye in Latin comes the verb occultare. Occultare means to hide, to conceal, or to keep secret, to keep hidden from the eye so that it cannot be seen. The information regarding natural law is occulted knowledge. It is knowledge that has been hidden from humanity. Okay, it's held by the few, which is represented here at the top of this pyramid. You can look at this as a pyramid representing knowledge or ignorance. At the top of the pyramid, you have knowledge. It's the higher you go in the pyramid, the more knowledge. Okay, but the pyramid tapers because at the top, very few people understand that information. Very few people have that knowledge and have actually integrated it into themselves to the point where it becomes understanding. All right. Down here, you have no knowledge, the ignorant masses. Okay. And up here, you have the people who are in the know, right? Who have this knowledge about how natural law works and are actually using it for a certain reason. We're going to get to that next, what that is. So please, as you go through this seminar, please keep in mind, if I ever use the term occult, all I'm talking about here is hidden knowledge. That's what it means. Occulted knowledge is hidden. Now, why would anybody want to hide knowledge that is extremely important? Well, there's a very specific reason, all right? But before we even get to that, we have to talk about what is this occulted knowledge? What is the body of knowledge? What does it comprise? When I'm saying the occult, the knowledge of the occult, what do I mean by that? All right? Occult knowledge constitutes two things. There's two general bodies of occult knowledge. In the actual mystery traditions and in occult schools, they talk about these as arcana, A-R-C-A-N-A, arcana. The word arcana is also Latin. It means knowledge. Okay, that's all it means. So there's two bodies of knowledge. There's one body of knowledge in the occult called lesser arcana, the lesser arcana or the minor arcana. This means the knowledge of the microcosm, the knowledge of the small things. Okay, it doesn't mean it's less important. It means it's dealing with the individual units of consciousness, the human psyche, the psyche of the individual. Okay, so the first major body of occult knowledge constitutes knowledge of human consciousness, how it works, how it operates, what our motivations are, things like that. Okay, the second body of occult knowledge is called the greater arcana or the major arcana. All right, and again, this doesn't refer to that it's more important. It refers to it is the macrocosmic understanding, the understanding of the very large laws of nature that govern the macrocosm. Okay, so universal laws are part of the greater arcana of occult knowledge. And what I call here today, under the umbrella, the term natural law, falls into that second category of greater knowledge, the greater arcana of occult knowledge. Okay, and what these natural laws are unseen and universal spiritual laws. We could talk about the word natural here too. Natural is derived from Egyptian and other Middle Eastern tradition languages. Okay, the word neter in Egyptian, which would have been spelled without vowels, if we transliterated it, it would be NTR in English. Neter means spirit in Egyptian, in ancient Egyptian. The suffix al, even in English today, but if you go back into Arabic languages and ancient Middle Eastern languages, al as a suffix actually means of or related to, or having come from. Okay, so natural, if you put these root words together, neter and al, right? It means of or related to the realm of spirit, of or related to God. Actually, the word neter also meant God, spirit or God. Okay, so this is the spiritual domain, the laws that actually are operating in the unseen realm. Okay, now they manifest in the physical realm. We're going to talk about that. Okay, because that's the operation that it trickles down from. It starts in the spiritual domain and then it manifests in the physical domain. All right, so it's important to understand these two bodies of knowledge. The lesser arcana, okay, is about the monad or the individuated unit of consciousness of the human being. And then the greater knowledge is about the laws that govern the macrocosmic universe. All right, so what these laws do, this body of the workings of nature that I'm calling under the umbrella natural law, they're universal spiritual laws which govern the consequences of behavior. They govern the consequences of behavior. And I would add a caveat to that. They govern the consequences of behavior for intelligent species, for beings that are capable of coming to their understanding. Okay? I would delineate that from like the animal kingdom. Okay? The animal kingdom is not held to the same standard as human beings when it comes to this body of information, because I don't think you're going to sit down with your cat and explain natural law to it. Okay, so when people say, well, why doesn't the animal kingdom held to account in the same way that human beings are? It's because, surprise, surprise, we don't share the same level of consciousness. Okay, there is differences in levels of consciousness and abilities to comprehend information and to actually know how something works. Just like you will not be explaining physics to your dog anytime soon. Okay, you're not going to explain natural law to the animal kingdom and have them grasp it because they're not at the same level of consciousness as we are. Okay, so we are held to a different account when it comes to natural law. It governs human behavior. It would be an easy way of saying it. This body of knowledge has actually been called consequentialism by past researchers and teachers. And I have no problem with that term. I've actually looked into consequentialism and it's quite similar, okay, in its scope and what it teaches. It's been called karmic law in many Middle Eastern and Eastern traditions, okay? And I have no problem with that term for it either. It has been called in some of the Western traditions and Christian traditions moral law. And I have no problem with that term either. Religionists have called it God's law, and I have no problem with that term either. I have no problem with any of these terms being applied to the umbrella of natural law, because that is essentially what it is. But we're going to get deeply into how it works and operates in our lives here today. Why is this knowledge hidden away from people? To what ends? The knowledge of the occult, the hidden knowledge about how natural law works and how consciousness works, is not commonly known. That's why it's not the exoteric. It's not given to the masses. It's the esoteric. It is reserved for the few. And there's a reason for that. It's been deliberately hidden away and kept from the general public in order to create and maintain a power differential. Because if someone else is an extreme level of knowledge, and they know how something works, like something as trivial as how human consciousness works, how human motivations work, how human perceptions work, how human beings can be manipulated. Somebody has deep knowledge of that information. And there's a whole bunch of people over here who have not one iota of how that works. What kind of a number do you think somebody can do on people like that? See, the way I ask people to look at this is real simple. Imagine a very, very, very advanced psychologist at the top of his field, wrote all the textbooks, okay? And he's got a house out in the burbs. He comes into the university. He's got tenure, okay? He's got the trophy wife, the house out in the suburbs, the 3-car garage, driving the Lexus into work at his tenured job. And he finds out that his trophy wife is having an affair because she's bored. She's not satisfied with him at home. And it's maybe the 19-year-old, captain of the local high school football team or something. He's a senior. He's a star football player, right? The jock, yeah. And she has a fling with him. Well, what if he decides I'm going to become buddy-buddy with my boy here after finding out about his wife's affair? And this kid, this punk, who's cheating on, my wife's cheating on me with, he knows nothing. He doesn't study the mind. He doesn't know anything even about himself. He watches TV 6 hours a day, plays violent video games, is obsessed with football, What kind of a number you think that psychologist can do on that kid? Total number. That's the answer, exactly. That's right. He could do a total number on him. He can gain his confidence. He can get into his head. And I guarantee you give him a little bit of time, he could screw up his life based on what he knows and how he would be able to manipulate based on his hatred of that person. Well, guess what? That's the position humanity's in. We're that punk jock. And I'm not saying we necessarily did something to deserve it, but we're in that same position where the people with this knowledge at the highest levels, they hate us. And they're doing a total number on us because we don't have this knowledge. And until that changes, don't expect the playing field to be leveled. Expect it to get worse, okay? The knowledge is hidden to create and maintain a power differential between those who hold it and those who are ignorant of it. It's that simple. The knowledge of natural law and its operations constitutes what I call the most deeply occulted or hidden information that exists on this planet. You will not find any more hidden information. This is the thing that all the distractions are there for, to keep you from learning. The endless trivialities, the nonsense you hear on the news, all the video games, all of the nonsense television, the sports, it's all there to keep people from understanding this. And I can't get you to accept that or believe it, and I don't ask you to believe it. I'm telling you that's what they're trying to, from my years of being inside occult traditions that are very, very dark. I'm telling you, this is what they don't want you to know from firsthand experience. How many people here today know that I was involved in the dark occult in my past? Good, great, okay. The powers that be want to seek to keep this information hidden from the people of the earth at all costs, because understanding this information about natural law will level the playing field and put an end to the currently entrenched systems of control that are operating on the earth. We should very clearly make a distinguishment between nescience and ignorance so that people fully understand the difference between these two concepts. How many people even have heard the term nescience? Very few. This is a word that has practically been sanitized from colloquial English, practically been sanitized from the English language. And there's a reason for that too. There's two contexts to not knowing something. The first context is nescience. Okay? Nescience comes from the Latin. The prefix ne in Latin means not or not present or absent. Okay? And then scio, sciere in Latin means to know. It's where we get the word science from. Okay? So you put them together, and nescience, it actually, those two roots form another word, nesciere. Nesciere in Latin means not to know, to not understand. But there's a connotation to it. It means to not understand because the specific information that you may be having a desire to understand is completely absent. It is not present, and you cannot actually aggregate that information. You can't bring those pieces of grammar together to form the sentence, okay? It's not present, okay? So you don't have it at all. It's unattainable. This should be clearly delineated from ignorance. Now, nescience is not someone's fault. The information just isn't there, okay? You can't be blamed for nescience. There is no blame in nescience. The person who is nescient is not to be blamed for being nescient. The information simply wasn't present so they could take it in and then come to understand it. Ignorance carries blame. This is another thing. People want to think in the New Age movement, there's no such thing as nobody's to blame. And that goes to that there's no cause for anything that's happening, as you'll hear a lot in the New Age circles. Okay, I very strongly put down these notions, or attempt to. Okay, there are causes and effects. There are people who are responsible for what is happening. There is blame. Blame exists. Okay, there are people who are culpable. We're going to talk about moral culpability later. So ignorance has blame attached to it and responsibility attached to it. Okay, it comes from the Latin verb ignorare in Latin, and this means not to know, just like nescience means not to know, but in a completely different connotation. The connotation of ignorance means you don't know, even though necessary information is present and right there before you, because you have willfully refused or disregarded that information. Whether you've refused it because it made you feel uncomfortable, or whether you disregarded it because you felt that's not important for me to know. I don't need to know that. Or you feel you already understand something that contradicts with what's, the new thing that you're hearing or seeing. Okay. So when you willfully disregard something, okay, if I wanted to willfully disregard the gentleman sitting in the front row, he's present. I could just pretend he's not here and ignore him. That's what ignoring is. This is why I try to say to people, the impact of the word is almost lost to us, of the word ignorance, because of the way it's pronounced. I tell people, start pronouncing it ignorance. Ignorance. Then people will hear the word ignore in it, and the connotation becomes clear. It means you're ignoring it. Ignorance. Okay? That's how I like to say it now, because the connotation is clear that way. The information is there, the truth is there, and somebody wants to ignore it completely. Now, that is inexcusable, and there is blame that is attached with that. So what I ask people all the time is, do we have a nescient society, or do we have an ignorant one? Do we have an ignorant one? Is our society ensconced in nescience, or is it ensconced in ignorance? I would argue absolutely that we are ensconced in ignorance in society, not nescience. I think we are drowning in information. I think we are drowning in the truth that is all around us, but people are ignoring it. Largely. Not everyone. There's many people who are very hungry for it and taking it in as fast as they can, But I think the majority of human beings are in the state of ignorance, even though the truth is present all around us. And that constitutes what Art talked about earlier, this consensus trance, which people in the so-called truth community or truth movement have likened to sleep. They say that they are asleep. I liken it to hypnosis. If you look at the origins of the word hypnosis, right, it means suppressed knowledge. It comes from Greek. Hypo means under, as in hypodermic, under the skin. And gnosis means knowledge, the suppression of knowledge. Hypo means suppression also, under and suppression. So hypnosis is the suppression of knowledge. And that's the state that these people are in. And it's done by themselves. It's not, see, we have to stop looking at this as a victim relationship. This is a willful choice. In a time of overwhelming information available at people's fingertips, the truth being ignored is not an option. It's a willful decision that people are making. And it's a decision that they should be held accountable to because of what is going on, that they are ignoring, what they are allowing to go on in their name and not saying a thing about it. Content to let evil run amok. All right? And then people will wonder, why are we losing freedom? Why is freedom on the wane? Why is totalitarianism and tyranny rising up? Why do we see so much control and obsession with control in our society? They'll see that. Many of them will see the rising police state. They'll see the injustices in our society. They'll see the restrictions on our inherent natural liberty. Okay? But here's the thing. Many of them will not make the transition to grasping. They'll say, yeah, this is what's happening to the earth. It's being turned into a huge prison everywhere. And at the most rapid pace right here in America. Okay? And they'll see this lock going on to the cage. But the question that they never get to, they don't even get to the question, let alone the answer, is why? They'll talk about the symptoms. They'll describe the prison. They'll describe every corner of the cage accurately in many cases. They can tell you exactly how it's working. They can tell you all the different aspects of the control system. But they can't tell you why it's actually going into place. Why is that happening? Well, that's what this presentation answers. Why are we losing freedom? And it gets to the actual heart of that answer. So what this presentation constitutes is a master key that unlocks all the locks to all the doors on all the cages in the prison, if it is accepted. And once again, I don't tell you that belief is required for that, because truth is always present. It's always here. It's a matter of, will we perceive it as being present, acknowledge it's present by stop ignoring it, okay, and then accept it into ourselves, and then do something with it. Understanding is not the end. Taking in the knowledge and understanding it is the beginning. Action is required. See, knowledge is required, understanding is required, but then action is finally required, above all, if change is to be created. And that's how the laws of attraction really work. So, will people as a whole, as a society, accept that master key? I can't answer that question. All I can do is try to place it into their hands. After I have taken that key and unlocked my personal prison, my personal cages, and freed my mind, all I can do is try to help people to see, here's how this key works. Here it is. Here's the information that constitutes that key. And here's how you put it to work in your life. That's all I can do. Can't make anybody take it. Let's look at what problem solving entails, because that's really critical to understand if we're going to get past this stage and where we're at in our stifled evolutionary development as a species. There's a few main steps to solving problems, any problem. Doesn't matter what the nature of the problem is. The first is you have to recognize that the problem exists. Recognize that there is a problem to begin with. And I think by asking the question, is everybody content with the way things are? And nobody raised their hand. I think that's great, because it at least acknowledges to me, the people here today recognize we have a problem. And that's healthy. That's good. Okay. Many people out there don't believe we have a problem. You know, they like this place. They like the world the way that it is, you know, which is unfathomable to me, because to me, it's a living hell. And that's not because of how my own personal life is going. I'm very content with my own personal life. I have no self-inflicted suffering in my personal life. I don't create problems for myself. My life goes on very well according to how I live it without hurting anybody else. The problem is other people. And that's another thing the New Agers won't acknowledge, and they'll flip out if you say that there's a problem with someone else. There are problems with other people, okay? And people will say people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. My glass house has been taken down long time ago, because I went through all that personal introspective work, and I dug deep into my subconscious and faced those problems and confronted them head on and healed them and came out of the mindset that I was once in, okay? So, you know, people will say, if there's something you don't like, you're seeing in other people, that's something in yourself that you're seeing in them. This is New Age mumbo jumbo nonsense, okay? If you're not part of the problem, I'm not part of this problem. I can say that honestly. I'm not part of this problem. I can look at every single person, anybody who's watching this, and say, I'm not part of the problem that's happening on the earth, with all honesty and knowing that I'm telling the truth with that, okay? But see, at one point, I was part of the problem, and a big part of the problem. Okay. What I had to do at some point is stop doing this and pointing out and saying the problem lies elsewhere while I was still part of it. And then I had to do this and point squarely at myself and say, what do I need to change here, and finally here, in the guts, in the courage? You know, people will say, yeah, change happens in the mind, it happens in the heart. But lastly, it happens in the guts. We need to generate what I call the heart, mind, guts, okay? You got to care enough to know and then put it into action. The heart, mind, guts, okay? That taking action is the most important step when it comes to creating change. We're going to get to that in a moment. But the whole point here is I had to look at what I needed to change about myself in my thoughts, my emotions, and my actions, and then change those things in myself. This is what most people want to run away from. They want to say, yeah, I want those things that I say I want to magically to be present in my life, but I don't want to do those things that require self-change in how I think, in how I feel, and in how I act. I want it magically to happen without changing those things in me. So I can honestly look at the rest of the world and say, the problem does not lie within me. I am not seeing a manifestation of myself in other people. Other people have not done the same process that I have, the introspective work that I have, and gone through that painful, painstaking work that involves effort, hard effort. I'm not up here telling people, I'm offering you the tonic. You're going to take a sip and magically you will be enlightened. Okay? Knowing what's going on in the world is hard work. It involves destruction. It's a destructive process. It involves destruction of belief systems. It involves completely breaking down barriers that are in your head. Okay? Hardly anybody wants to do that work. People want to run 1,000,000 miles an hour in the opposite direction from that work. Anything but that. I'll take the grave instead of that. Okay? That's where most people's heads are at. All right? So let's get back to the steps here for problem solving. The first is you got to recognize that there's a problem. If you are in denial, good luck. Let me know how that works out for you, because you're not solving any problem in the state of denial at all. Fear-based denial of the problem must first be dealt with and conquered and stamped out. And you have to acknowledge how bad it is. You know, people feel symptoms coming on of a disease or something, and they want to ignore it because they don't want to believe I'm sick. I don't want to believe I'm sick. I don't want to believe I have a problem. Then you're waiting. You don't get it diagnosed, and then it turns into a much bigger problem, which is where we're at as a society for ignoring this information. This is what denial looks like, symbolically, okay? A person with their head in the sand like an ostrich. And please take note, ladies and gentlemen, when you're in this position, when you're in the position of denial with your head in the sand, you're on your knees with your ass in the air, okay? And I almost say it's amazingly synchronistic that the human body was designed like that in order to put your head in the sand, symbolically, so to speak, you have to be on your knees, okay? And that's where most of our society is at. They're on their knees and in that state of denial. The second step to problem solving is to recognize that the symptoms that are being displayed, the symptoms you are seeing, are merely effects of underlying causal factors. You can't treat symptoms and solve a problem. It's not possible. That's not how problem solving works. You have to get to what caused the problem, okay? Instead of simply treating symptoms, make an accurate diagnosis of the causes of the problem. So what does the word diagnosis mean? Diagnosis comes from Greek. The preposition dia, transliterated there in the parentheses, you see it in Greek script, okay? It means through or by way of. So by a method, by a particular method, all right? And the second part of diagnosis is the Greek noun gnosis. Gnosis means knowledge in Greek. So what a diagnosis means is through knowledge or by way of knowledge. You're going to solve the problem by way of knowledge. There is knowledge that acts as the requirement to solving the problem and getting what you want. And here's another thing, and I'm going to keep going back to this. It's going to be like an undercurrent in this, because the New Age community, and I'm going to become a more outspoken opponent of New Age ideologies, because they are lying to people, whether it be through direct, willful deception, or whether it be through useful dupes and useful idiots. They are telling people things that are completely inaccurate to how things really work. All right? Because they want to keep people suppressed and non-active. They want people in acceptance mode of everything. Accept, never rebel. Okay? Don't take action. Just observe, just watch. You'll hear all these things in the New Age movement. Okay? The reason I bring it up is because when you even say the word knowledge to some New Agers, they almost take offense. Because what the New Age is becoming is the new modern day variant. It's a new form of what's known as solipsism. We're going to get to what solipsism is in a little while. Okay? But essentially, people don't want to hear that knowledge is what is required. Because the attainment of real knowledge, not pseudo-knowledge, real knowledge, requires work. It requires effort. It requires reading. It requires listening. It requires watching. And you know what most of all it requires that people don't want to give up? Who can tell me? Time. Thank you, sir. It requires time. There's one of the currencies people don't spend, on many things that they don't feel they can get immediate gratification from, which is why immediate gratification is so stressed in our society by the control system. So that's what keeps people in their ignorance. So a diagnosis means if you're going to get well, you got to have the knowledge of the underlying causal factors that led to the creation of the symptoms. You're not going to treat the symptoms and get well. You got to have the knowledge to get to the causal factors, to find out what cause put this into effect. And we're going to talk a lot about cause and effect. The third step to problem solving is through the knowledge that you've acquired now, via making an accurate diagnosis of the problem of the causal factors, right? You're going to then put that knowledge into action. Understanding what created the problem is like step 2, right? Stop being in denial, understand what caused the problem, act on the knowledge you now have to solve the problem, to make it right, okay? So action is required. We make the diagnosis, then we have to take the required action necessary to rectify or to set right, which is what the word rectify means, the causal factors that led to the manifestation of the problem. Let's talk a little bit about the deeply mystified concept of what truth is or what it means. You know, you'll get into all these really deep abstract discussions of the mind of God and, trying to get into quantum theory and everything. This is mystification of the concept of the truth. And we have to demystify it. We have to bring it down to real simple, easy to understand language that anybody can comprehend. And then really completely delineate that from perception of any given thing. Because the two are not the same. When people say perception is reality, nothing could be farther from reality than that statement. Perception is not reality, okay? It is just what it says, perception, seeing through, perceive, to see through something, like a lens or a filter, okay? I perceive things differently without these glasses. That's one perception. When I put them on, I perceive things quite differently and more clearly, okay? Well, that's how human perception works, like a lens. It's a filter, okay? But what's there is the same thing. What's there is the same thing. All that changes how I perceived it, all right? So let's look at this concept. Truth is objective. That means that it's not dependent upon the perceptions of human beings. No one wants to hear that. That is a direct assault, a direct frontal assault on the human ego. Because everybody wants to hear, my perceptions are important. And we want to also believe my perceptions are accurate. Okay? Now people will say, well, what makes you say your perception of this topic is going to be accurate? That's because I went through the process of having to admit over and over and over and over and over again, endlessly, how wrong I was about my former perceptions. I went through that destructive process of breaking down my former belief systems, of breaking down my former emotional patterns, of most of all, changing my behavior. That's the thing that's the most destructive because we get attached to our behaviors and patterns. So asking people to change, I recognize it's not easy. It took me probably about 8 years of my life to do it. Most people don't want to spend a minute on creating personal change, let alone 8 years. And, when I look at myself, in all honesty, again, none of this is to sound egoic or to toot my own horn, but I look at it like I was a mild case of ego entrapment, a mild case compared to where I see other people act. I feel like I was the, a very brittle stone that just needed to be hit with a chisel a few times and it broke into powder. Other people are hardened granite or diamond. To break them down is going to take enormous effort and work. And most of them don't even want to do it. They're so calcified, they've been so compressed into that hardened state that they don't even want to start. So I realized telling people your perceptions are not what really matters. The truth isn't based upon how you perceive things, that it's independent from your perceptions. Most people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. Human beings' perceptions are capable of wavering. They can waver slightly from the truth, and they can waver wildly from the truth. All right? What truth is that which does not waver. It doesn't move. It's that which is. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks about it. It doesn't matter whether anybody believes it. It doesn't matter whether anybody knows it. It doesn't matter whether anybody sees it. It doesn't matter whether anybody wants to see it. It's there. It's always been there. It's always going to be there. Nothing anybody does can change what has happened. Can anybody change what has already occurred in what we call in the thinking of linear time, the past? Not one person here is capable of doing that. Let me tell you something. Not one being in the entire manifested universe is capable of doing that. Because that which has already occurred is set in the record of the universe. Nothing can change the past, ever. Great movie on this. Watch the new movie, The Time Machine. Not the original 50s version or 60s version, the new one. I think it came out in late 90s or early 2000s, okay? This movie got crushed in reviews. Crushed. Whenever reviewers crush a movie and give it the worst ratings, go see that film. Because I guarantee you there's very important allegorical concepts that you need to understand embedded in that film, and that's why the reviewers crush it, because they don't want you getting any ideas, This movie got crushed in the theaters, and I'm telling you, it's one of the best films to understand the concept of the absolute impossibility of changing the past. The past cannot be altered. You know what can be altered? The future. That's what that movie's about. And you know where the alteration of the future begins? In the present moment. That's exactly right. That's the only place it begins. Okay? So what truth is, the demystified concept of truth, is it's simply that which already exists. It's that which has happened in the past and is happening in the present moment. The truth does not exist in the future. When we get to those future moments and it's the present, truth will be existent then, but not until. Okay? So there is no such thing as truth in the future. Truth is that which has occurred in the past and that which is occurring in the present. It is simply that which is and that which has been. Please recognize when I use the word truth, that is all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the mind of God. I'm not talking about the entire reason for the existence of the universe. I'm talking about the events that have taken place in the past and are taking place in the present. That's all. And guess what? That's all the truth is. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. Okay? You want to make it more complicated than that, call it something other than truth so as not to confuse people to what truth really is. Truth versus human perception. Okay? Now, I want to ask people to imagine, see these white lines? Imagine these white lines that do not waver as truth. And imagine that the perception that is set against the truth, we're going to take three different individuals. This is individual A, this is individual B, this is individual C. Okay? Their ability to perceive what has occurred and what is occurring is what I would refer to as consciousness. Okay? Consciousness is a being's ability to recognize patterns and meaning with respect to those patterns. Meaning you have an accurate understanding of what's taking place within and around you, or you have an inaccurate understanding of what's taking place in and around you. If your consciousness is high, meaning it's at a high frequency, okay, that means you're going to have more of an ability to understand and recognize the patterns. If your consciousness is low, you're at a low frequency, you're going to see the pattern less. You're not going to accurately perceive. So I liken this to a waveform. In simple, physics, a wave, this is a simple sine wave, okay? It has its crest here and its trough here, okay? And then the pattern repeats, goes up to the crest, down to the trough, and it repeats over again. The distance between the either crests or troughs of the wave is called the wavelength, okay? The longer the wavelength, the shorter the frequency. What that means is how frequently is it going to be intercepting the line that represents truth? How frequently is it going to be aligned with this line, which we are calling truth? Okay. Now, can everybody just, with that explanation, understand this simple model and what I'm talking about here? Is that clear? Okay, because it's important. Because this is a low frequency vibration. It's a low frequency wave. A wave like this, if it was an audio wave, would produce a low frequency, would produce a low bass tone. Okay. As we go up to a higher frequency, you can see the wavelength is shorter, meaning that it intercepts the line which represents truth much more frequently. We can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 there. Okay? So this is a higher frequency vibration. And we go up to an even higher frequency. Let's say person C has this consciousness. They have a higher frequency. Okay? And they're intercepting the line that represents truth much more frequency. I won't count those out because there's a lot of them. Okay? The higher the frequency, the more in tune with truth we are. What would happen if this frequency became infinitely high? What would it become? It would be indistinguishable from a line. And therefore, someone would be aligned to that which is. The higher the level of consciousness or frequency, which is their perception of reality being accurate, okay? Not wavering as much from the truth because it's hitting it in more places. We would basically, this wave would turn into a line at some point, the higher the frequency went. Think about this in sound, right? You hear a low bass tone, it's like, and it goes up, and it would go eventually outside the range of human hearing because the frequency went so high. Same concept here. The higher the frequency, the higher the perception of reality, the quality of the perception is going to be. Okay? The concept to keep in mind here is perception is not reality. It's the filter we see reality through. What the human being's work is to do is to align their perception to the reality which exists, which is truth. We need to set aside what we want the truth to be and look at what it is. What it is altogether different than what we want it to be. But until we recognize what it is, we're not even in a position to make an accurate diagnosis of what's going on and therefore create what we want it to be. So I'm going to give the first quote here, comes from a gentleman I personally greatly respect. How many people are familiar with Travis Walton by a show of hands? Hardly anybody in the room. Wow, 2 people. Amazing. And I know Barb is in the back because we've met him personally. I spoke with this gentleman at a conference last year in 2012. And I just want to say, I just think he's a totally genuine individual. I don't care what anybody thinks of me saying that, okay? I believe him. Do I know factually that what he claims happened to him did? No, I do not. But I believe what he is saying for a reason. When I am around somebody, especially for any length of time, I think my intuition is good that I can get a feel for their heart, okay? And when he's telling you stuff, it's very consistent. And in his book, he asks people, you need to listen to my whole story, suspend your disbelief for a minute, and then do your research and then make a judgment call. Do you want to believe me? Do you think I'm telling you the truth? Do you think I'm lying to you? And then make up your own mind, okay? And who Travis Walton is, he claims that he was an abductee, that he was taken on board an extraterrestrial craft at a point in his life. He disappeared for days. They were out looking for him, and his best friends were accused of murdering him. And he shows up 5 days later in like deplorable conditions, out on a country road someplace. But anyway, again, I spoke with him back in 2012. I just bumped into him again. We were just at a conference. I'm bringing this up for a reason. We were just at a conference in Philadelphia where he spoke. And this quote, I feel I would start, if I was going to quote somebody, I was going to make this like the first quote in the presentation today. Travis Walton says in his book, which is called Fire in the Sky, he said, I have come to realize that the biggest problem anywhere in the world, the biggest problem anywhere in the world is that people's perceptions of reality are compulsively filtered through the screening mesh of what they want and do not want to be true. Now, when I read that in his book, I got chills up and down my spine because I said, this meshes exactly with what I'm talking about in my section, in my presentation called Truth versus Perception. And he's encapsulating it in a sentence perfectly. All right. We want things to be true. That doesn't make it so. That's not what makes truth the way that it is. What makes truth is the way that it is what behaviors were taken and what is the actual effect in the manifested world. That's how things are. Okay. It doesn't matter how we want them to be. They may be a completely different way right now than we want them to be. And I would say for the people in this room, they are a completely different way than we want them to be. But most people in the world think that they kind of believe that they're the arbiter of truth. And that's a bad place to be. And that's a very, very low level of consciousness to think that if I don't believe that it's this way, it's not this way. Many people are trapped in that state of mind. Okay. Now, the reason I even bring this up and included Travis's quote here is at this conference that we were just at a couple of weeks ago. Okay. I didn't speak at it. I tabled at it. A woman came up to my table and she picked up my New Age Bullshit DVD, which is available here today in the back. And she said, what's this about? With a real skeptical look. And I explained, well, it's a 7-hour extended video podcast that has many, many slides. Okay. I gave a shortened version of it at the Free Your Mind conference in Philadelphia. And this is the extended version that goes deeply into the deception of the New Age movement and how it is a religion that is designed to suppress the masculine side of the personality, which is the side that actually takes action and creates change. Okay. And that's, of course, pushed by the sacred feminine, which is care and creativity and compassion, right? Both need to be present. We're going to talk about that here today. But I said, this is about the suppression of that masculine energy. And that's what the New Age movement is about, the suppression of the masculine, right? So I said, what the New Age religion wants to teach people is just accept everything the way it is, no matter how unjust it is, no matter how deplorable the conditions are, no matter how much evil is taking place in our midst. Accept it. That's the New Age religion. And here's what she said. That's exactly how I am. I just accept everything. I don't make any judgments on anything that occurs, no matter what it is, no matter how it's perceived. You want to perceive it as evil? That's your judgment. I said, yes, it is my judgment. You know why? Because it's evil. It really is. There is such a thing. I said, and you're content to let evil run amok and take this whole world because you don't want to act. Because what's really there is cowardice. That's what it really is. Okay? And she didn't want to hear that. He said, I prefer not to see it that way. Now, align this with the quote. I prefer not to see it that way. Okay? And I hope by some miracle she happens to see this presentation at some point. Okay? And, in hindsight, I didn't say this to her on the spot, but I thought about it for a little bit the next day. And what I should have really said is, no, you prefer not to see, period. That's the truth. Okay? So I prefer not to see it that way means, no, I want to ignore reality. I want to believe what I want to be true is the way that it already is. And this is what the New Age hoax is peddling to people. Okay? So, great quote that I thought accurately sums it all up. See, this woman also told me that she is a follower, quote unquote, of the New Age ideology that is referred to as the Course in Miracles. How many people have even heard of this? A lot of people. Okay? You know what that is? It's called solipsism, wrapped in a nice, neat new package. Solipsism. How many people are familiar with the ideology called solipsism? Good. More than I would have thought. Most people have never heard of this. Okay? Solipsism is a completely egoic and destructive ideology that has absolutely no bearing or resemblance to truth in any way. And the people who are solipsists are mentally ill. I'm not even going to provide any evidence of that. I'm telling you, you need to research this religion and sickness for yourself. It's a mental illness. A solipsist is a mentally ill person who should probably be somehow removed, segregated from society, and institutionalized until they are made well, because they are a destructive influence on society. This is what I focused on podcast number 1 of my podcast series and radio shows. I went into the ideology of what solipsism is and how destructive it is and how it's a religion. Okay? What this is, well, first of all, let's look at the word. And you'll notice I'll be breaking down words all day long. Because if you don't understand where words came from, you don't really understand what they really were intended to mean. Regardless of whatever connotation they may have taken on in the modern world, the intended meaning of the word, the original meaning, is derived from its etymological derivation. You need to go into the ancient languages, Latin and Greek roots and other languages, Germanic, Arabic, etc., and you need to break down the words from their etymological origins. Then you will understand their real meaning. And I'm telling you, you do this, and the top of your head will blow off by what you will find. By what words we speak on a daily basis actually mean, and we have no idea what they mean, okay? So the word solipsism comes from the Latin adjective solus, which means alone or one, and then the Latin pronoun ipse, which means self, myself, etc., okay? The ideology of solipsism is that nothing exists outside of me. I'm the only being that exists in creation. Or essentially, it's another way of saying I'm God. Okay, that my perception is the only real perception, and no one else is here. Now imagine that. Now, what I'm essentially telling the audience here today is your perceptions are not the truth. You have to work to align your perceptions with the truth. That's damaging enough to the human ego. Okay, if I just said none of you exist, I'm only perceiving your existence. I'm the only one who exists. Imagine how egoic that statement is, and actually how demoralizing it is to other people. You're even telling them, I don't even consider that you exist. That's what a solipsist is. They believe the universe is a big illusion created somehow for their amusement. And that there's no objective reality, that you don't exist, you don't exist, you don't exist, you don't exist. I'm the only one who exists. And that's not mental illness. We don't diagnose that as mental illness. Okay? I don't care if you want to accept the notion everything is one. I personally accept that notion. I do accept that we are all one. That doesn't mean you're not existent in the physical domain right now as I'm talking to you. Of course we all exist here. We are in the physical domain. Okay? The whole point is these people want to believe the entire spiritual physical domain is such an illusion that nothing that takes place in it matters or has any significance and should just be watched, and nothing should be done to change it. And let me explain what this is, folks. When I was a Satanist, okay, and I was working inside the Church of Satan and other dark occult organizations, they have a set of sins, believe it or not. They don't look at them as sins in the same way that, religionists look at sin. But they have the things that, these are behaviors and thought patterns that should not be engaged in by the dark occultist themselves, by the magician, if you will. You are not to engage in these behaviors, but we are to peddle them to other people. We are to get them to engage in these behaviors. Okay? You know what the first one is? No, it's not. That's the second or third. I think it's the third, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the list handy. But the first one is stupidity. That's the first satanic sin. Okay? For the dark occultist. But they want other people in deep stupidity. They want other people in deep ignorance. The idea here is we will know it all. We will know the truth so that we can control others and keep them a dumbed down herd. Okay? There's a bunch of other ones, but I think the second or third is solipsism. Solipsism is one of the biggest sin for Satanists and dark Luciferians and dark occultists. They don't want any of their membership believing in this mental illness nonsense. Okay? But they want to propagate it and peddle it. They want to do that. And they told me personally, Higher ups in this network told me personally when I was working with them, wait until you see the New Age books that our membership will be writing, or either writing ourselves or putting into the hands of useful dupes to write and put out there. We'll be giving them the idea, they'll write it for us, put it out there as their own idea. And they said, we are going to propagate and peddle solipsism like you have never seen. And you know what? When they say something, they do it. I'm serious. They're aligned. Their act is together. They act on the same page. And for that, I have respect for them as an enemy. And I don't take anything they do lightly. I recognize they have the will. They're not like the rest of humanity. They align their thoughts, their knowledge with their version of care. You know, it's not like our emotionally based care, but they care about what they're doing and then they act. And when they act in concert and they get it done. Okay. I'm not saying, you know, I agree with any of their agenda because I don't. I'm trying to stop it. But I have respect for their unity. They are unified and on the same page, and humanity is not. And that's why, in all honesty, we're having our rear ends handed to us in this spiritual battle right now, at least right now. Solipsism is the ideology that only one's mind is sure to exist. Solipsists contend that knowledge of anything that is outside of one's own mind is unsure, and hence there is no such thing as objective truth. Okay? No such thing as objective truth. And therefore, nothing about the external world and its workings can actually ever be known. Just think about that statement. It's saying no one can ever know anything. You cannot come to know anything at all. There is no such thing as knowledge. So what I would say to somebody who's following the quote-unquote Course in Miracles, or Course in Solipsism, or Course in the acceptance of all forms of evil in this world is, you can't know anything by reading the Course in Miracles because nothing can be known. You know? Why would a solipsist ever pick up a book? Why would a solipsist ever watch anything, any video? Why would a solipsist ever engage in a conversation with another human being? You know? Tell a solipsist you can't know that you're going to fall off that cliff, so why don't you go try to walk over and see what happens? Because you can't be sure of anything. They won't do that, though. You know? The whole point here is this is a religion. This is a New Age religion. And I'm telling you who it's peddled by. It's peddled by the occultists who have the knowledge of how natural law works and are trying to put out whatever ideologies they can, destructive ideologies they can, to get people not to understand it, or to even go so far as to believe that nothing can be understood. Why would you bother to look into natural law? Nothing can be known. It's unbelievable that anybody would be so gullible and naive to fall into this mindset. Let me just tell you what it really is. It's a person who has given up on life. They feel that it's so difficult to know anything and they don't want to do the work to come to that level of knowledge that they've just said, I don't believe it can be known. That makes me feel more comfortable in my ignorance and laziness. That's the truth about what solipsism is. Okay? And that's the truth about my friend I bumped into at the MUFON conference. And I'd say that to her face. Okay? So we have to realize we're battling this force. This religion is on the rise. Solipsism is on the rise. More people are becoming solipsists or solipsistic in their beliefs, in their thought processes. Let's look at some basic definitions and working definitions. Now, first thing we're going to define is definition. Let's define what a definition is, okay? A definition is an exact statement, a statement of the exact meaning of a word, all right? We're looking for an exact meaning, not a connotation, not a maybe or a like or a somewhat. We're looking to narrow the focus. That's why it definites it. It makes it finite. We're taking it not infinite, we're finiting it. We're making it finite, okay? We're actually limiting through words what something means so we can be clearer about what we're saying, okay? It's an exact statement or description of the nature, scope, or meaning of something. Another way we could look at a definition when we're talking about visual or audio definition is it's the degree of distinctness or clarity of an object, image, or sound, okay? So why do people buy HD TV sets? They want higher definition. They want a higher clarity of the picture, okay? If you have high definition audio, for audio files, they won't accept anything but high definition audio because in comparison to low def audio, the clarity of the sound is very good. It's much better, okay? So that's what definition is. It is all related to clarity. When we use it in conjunction with words, it means the clarity of the meaning is amplified, okay? And when it's with a picture, the clarity of our vision, of the ability to see what the picture is, what the information in the picture is amplified. And same thing with sound. The more accurate the definitions that we have for words or concepts, the better our clarity of meaning and therefore our understanding of those concepts, words or concepts will be. So definition simply means clarity of meaning when we're applying it to words and concepts. So therefore, let's define natural law. So this is what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the day. We have to define it. The simple definition of natural is inherent, having a basis in nature, reality, and truth, not made or caused by humankind. So if it's natural, it wasn't made by mankind didn't make it. Okay. And again, the origin of the word, neter in Egyptian means spirit, and all means of or related to. So of or related to spirit. It is all of nature, the spiritual domain. See, this is the other part. People believe that the spiritual domain is separate from the physical domain. This is a huge thread and a huge central focus in all of my work. If you think the spiritual domain is not where you are at now because you're in the physical domain, you're mistaken. If you think that the spiritual domain is someplace other than the physical domain, you're also mistaken. If you place emphasis on one above the other and say, well, this one takes precedence and this one's not important. Either way you do it, whether you say the spiritual is more important and the world of matter should not be given any significance, it's imbalance and it's not true. Okay. Or if you say, hey, like scientism does in many, left brain scientism, the material world is all that there is. This is just dead mechanized clockwork called the universe, and it happened by accident for no reason. There's no such thing as the spiritual domain. Both of these worldviews, and we're going to get to a breakdown of these worldviews, they're completely inaccurate. They're not based in truth. And most of all, they're based on brain imbalance. And we're going to see how one of these worldviews or another develops when either the left brain hemisphere or the right brain hemisphere has taken precedence and dominance within the individual consciousness. So natural means spiritual. These words could be used interchangeably. So when I'm talking about natural law, I mean spiritual law, unseen spiritual laws. But overall, the dictionary definition of natural is it's inherent to nature and it's not made by man. The word law the definition is an existing condition which is both binding and immutable. So let's look at each one of these words. Existing. It means that it is present. It is present. Okay. It cannot be just ignored and expected that, well, that doesn't make it true and it's not going to have an effect. It's there. It's present. That's why it's a law that it's in operation. That is in operation. It is binding. Binding means it has effect. It means it doesn't matter whether you believe that it has an effect. It doesn't matter whether you understand that it has an effect. Doesn't care. And this is another big hammer to the ego. The human ego wants to hear what it wants to hear. One of the things it wants to hear is the universe cares about you personally. It cares about John. It cares about Bob. It cares about Mary. It cares about Elizabeth, whatever. Okay. It cares about you individually as a being. And now you could go so far as to say you believe that the creator of the universe cares about you. I'm not denying anybody or saying don't think that. What I'm saying is that the laws of the universe don't care about you. Laws have been created in this realm that work flawlessly, 100% of the time, flawlessly. Let me ask people to envision this scenario to try to clarify this. A couple are on a picnic. They're out in a state forest or something like that. They're on a picnic. About 50 yards away from where they're at, okay, there's a pretty tall cliff, maybe about 200 feet, okay, and it ends in some jagged rocks. They brought their 2-year-old child on the picnic with them. They unfold the blanket, take out the picnic basket, they're having their picnic. Maybe passions got heated and the husband and wife were, making out a little bit. Their kid, 2-year-old daughter in her nice Sunday sundress or whatever, wanders off, gets to the edge of that cliff. Will gravity care if that girl goes over the edge? Will gravity allow her to go over the edge? Yes, it will. Gravity's not going to say this girl doesn't understand this law and she'll die if she goes over that edge. She's innocent. She's nescient even. Not even ignorant. Innocent and nescient. Will that law still have an effect? You damn better well believe it will. And so does natural law in the same way. It doesn't care whether you don't know. It doesn't care whether you're nescient or ignorant. It's in effect, it's binding, and it is immutable. Immutable means that nothing you can ever do can ever change it. It is in effect eternally because man didn't put it into effect. You know who put it into effect? The creator of the universe put it into effect. And I don't really care what you think of that force as. You can think of it as an impersonal force. You can think of it as the man with the beard. You can think of it as this remote control. I don't really care what you think of it as. Personally, that's none of my business. But you know what? If you think of it that it's man that makes the laws, then I have a problem. Because man doesn't make these laws I'm talking about. The creator of the universe set these laws into motion, put them into effect, and they bind you. You and I are bound by these laws, whether we like it or not, whether we accept it or not, whether we understand it or not. They're in effect, and you are already creating the reality that we are experiencing based upon interaction with these unseen laws. Already. You're already doing it. You can never not be doing it. That's an impossibility. Okay? You're always creating, co-creating in harmony. In cooperation, I should say. Whether it's in harmony or opposition is a different story. In cooperation with these spiritual laws that I'm going to talk about, you are already creating in cooperation with them and can never not do so as long as you exist in the physical domain. Okay? So that's what the simple definitions that we're working forward with. Natural law doesn't mean anything other than this. That's it. It means, so let's put them together. Inherent, existing conditions that exist in nature, which are both binding and immutable. They have an effect whether they're understood or not, and they cannot be changed. So what would be our requirement of knowledge here? What do you think should be done? If we are always working with these, do you think we're going to create something that is wise to create, that is good, that is in alignment with what we say we want if we don't know how these laws operate? You know what's going to be created? A mess. Total chaos. Something you don't want. Something that leads to enormous suffering, which is where we're at. If, on the other hand, you have that knowledge of how these things work, then you align your behavior to them, you're going to create a whole new different ballgame. And then you're going to not have self-inflicted suffering. Okay? That's what this is all about. So let's give a working definition. This is what I call the soundbite, right? People say, well, tell me what natural law is, Mark. You have a few days? Maybe a large portion of the day like we're going to cover today. Maybe. Some people will get it. Okay? But really, you need to devote a large amount of time to studying this, understanding it, reading about it, and even experimenting with it. This is not an untestable hypothesis. Okay? And it's not a hypothesis. It's actually a law. But it's not untestable. You can test it. You can apply all the scientific methodologies to natural law. Same thing. Gather your information, observe, hypothesize, observe, test the results, publish the results. That's scientific methodology. The scientific methodology will be borne out for everything I'm talking about in this presentation if it is applied, because this is not a religion. This is not some new age mumbo jumbo. This is a science. It is a science that constitutes knowledge of how laws that are existent, in operation, and immutable in this universe work, and how we are creating what we experience in conjunction with these operating laws. And man didn't put them into effect. Whatever created this universe put them into effect. I'm not here today to tell you what that is. Your job in your own personal experience is to get in touch with what you feel that is. I'm not here to tell you what that is. I'm not here to tell anybody what that is. But my whole point is it created these laws and they're in effect. And if you want to stop suffering and if you want the human condition to change, you have to understand how these laws work. There is no way around that. Knowledge of these laws is required. And this is what people in the so-called New Age movement and in religious communities and in other communities don't want to acknowledge. They don't want to acknowledge that work is required. So let's give a working definition for natural law, my soundbite variant, okay? I tell people who want the 6 o'clock news edition of what natural law is, okay? Natural law is universal, non-man-made, binding, and immutable conditions that govern the consequences of behavior, and specifically, at least on this planet, human behavior. I would say in the universe, it governs the behavior of all intelligent beings. Intelligent beings, okay? Natural law is a body of universal spiritual laws which act as the governing dynamics of consciousness. The governing dynamics of consciousness. That's the working definition. Let's look at the dynamics between discovery and belief, the difference between discovery and belief. Because again, natural law is capable of being discovered, understood, and harmonized with. Now, does that sound like a religion? Religion asks people to believe, accept, and do without question. What this is saying, this exists, you're bound by it. The best you can do is to understand its operation, like you would understand gravity, and therefore not just walk toward the edge of a 200-foot cliff that is bottomed by jagged rocks. If you're intelligent and you understand how the law of gravity works, you won't do that behavior, Okay? Just like if you're intelligent and you understand how natural law works, you won't do certain behaviors to create a prison for the entire species, for your entire species. Unfortunately, humanity has not reached that level of consciousness yet. They are not at that level of co-creative intelligence to understand how these laws work and then align their behaviors to them. So natural law has nothing to do with religion. It's not a belief system. It's a science. It is a discoverable operation that is already in effect that we can either understand and align our behavior to or remain ignorant of and suffer as a result of that ignorance because it's already in effect and already has a binding effect upon you and your behaviors and everyone's. So when it comes to belief, and anybody that was trying to propagate a religion wouldn't put this slide up here. When it comes to natural law, it works just like gravity. So the clown that's going to jump over the cliff saying, I don't believe in gravity, what's going to happen? Down he goes. Because belief is irrelevant. Because natural law does not care about you. It does not care about you. It is in effect, no matter what you do, deal with it. And people don't want to hear that. And I recognize this. I recognize I'm not telling anybody anything they want to hear. If I wanted to sell a lot of stuff, if I wanted to be real popular, I'd come up here and I'd tell you exactly what you want to hear, and then I'd be making $50,000 a presentation like Wayne Dyer does. Okay? And that is his fee. I know because I've actually had some people speak to his management. That's what a new age presenter gets. You know what I ask for? Zero. I don't even ask for a stipend because I don't even care about fake money. I care about making real money. Real one I. The word money is actually one I. And people don't even have said it a billion times in their life and never recognized what they're saying is one I. And it's the symbol of the one eye, which represents spiritual enlightenment, is plastered all over the $1 bill. Okay? Well, this is the one. See, I tell people I'm a poor man when it comes to the fake money, but I'm very rich in the real stuff. The real thing, I have tons of. The fake stuff, I don't do so well with, and I don't care. It's not what I'm concerned about. I know it's fake. Okay? So I don't ask for a stipend when I present. I tell whoever set up the presentation, pay for my travel and lodging. Hook me up with a dinner or whatever. That's it. I'll come out and speak anywhere. Okay? The point is, if I was trying to appeal to somebody's ego and what they wanted to hear, I would tell you your beliefs are very important. Your beliefs shape, and they do shape your reality. In a negative way, if you don't align yourself with truth and you want to stay attached to a belief system because you prefer it over what's real, okay? So when it comes to natural law, I'm not telling people don't believe in yourself. People will say, there's forms of belief that are good. Yeah, I acknowledge that. I understand that. Believe in yourself, believe in your own ability to come to this understanding of information like this. But I'm explaining when it comes to a law that is existent in the universe, your belief doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. The universe doesn't care what those parents at that picnic whose child just went over the cliff believed. It doesn't care whether that girl doesn't know how gravity works. It's going to have an effect. You act a certain way, like a computer. Boom, you put this in, here's how you program this. That's what has to come out, invariably. Invariably, it is nothing personal. Natural law is not a personal force. It is an impersonal force that every single mystery tradition and occult tradition that has actually wanted to share this knowledge with people has been telling people about and attempting to tell people about since time immemorial. It is an impersonal force. It does not care about you. It does not worry or care in the slightest bit whether you understand it or accept it or not. It is in effect, you are bound by it, the end, and stop crying in your milk over it. That's it. No one wants to hear that. And I'm not so naive that I recognize people don't want to hear that I don't recognize that. I do recognize that. Believe me, I realize the wall I am up against in saying this. I get it fully. If I wanted to blow smoke up people's rear ends, I'd come up here and I'd say, the universe cares about you and what you believe. And it's going to gauge that. It's going to look at all that, and it's going to tabulate it. And it's going to say, well, what did he believe when he took this action? It's not going to say that. It's going to say, is this what happened? Yes or no? Yes. Here's the result. That's it. Unwaveringly and invariably. The human ego has a hard time with that. There was some popular TV show. I don't even remember what it was. Barb had downloaded it, and she was watching an episode, and it said, humanity's greatest fear is that truth is absolute. And I usually don't bother watching any television, okay? I downloaded a couple of shows to watch them because they're allegories, and I want to pick apart the allegory. But I wasn't even watching this one, but I heard it, and my head snapped around. Whoa, that came through a network television show? How'd that happen? Humanity's greatest fear is that the truth is absolute. The ego has a hard time with the concept of any absolutes. It loves relativism. That's another part of the big trap of where we're at. Relativistic ideas, and especially when it comes to morality. We're going to talk about moral relativism. But the concept here is natural law does not require your belief to be in effect, no more than gravity requires your belief to be in effect. Okay? That needs to be understood. Human belief is completely irrelevant when it comes to the existence and operation of natural law, just as it is irrelevant in relation to any of the other laws of nature, such as gravity, inertia, momentum, thermodynamics, or electromagnetism. Similar to such other phenomena of nature. The workings of natural law require no belief in order for them to be discovered and known. So what I'm saying is your belief will not change natural law, but your inquiry into it can lead to an understanding of it. You can develop the knowledge of it if you are willing to open your mind and look at how these laws function and what we're getting as a result of our disharmony with them. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard said that there are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what is not true, and the other is to refuse to accept what is true. Okay? So, believing in untrue notions, which is what religion is, all forms of it, all the 5 religions I posted at the beginning of the presentation. Organized cultural religion, money, scientism, politics, and the New Age movement. There's the world religions, folks. People think of religion as only the cultural religions. No, there's 4 other ones. One's called government and authority, okay? Or politics, however you want to name it. The other one is money, finance. There's another religion. One of them is the New Age movement, and one of them is scientism, which I'm not going to refer to as real science because it is not. It is a belief system and a religion. So what Kierkegaard is saying here is you can believe things that aren't true, and that will hold you back. And you can refuse to accept what is true, and that will also hold you back. I say these are the only 2 ways that humanity ever creates self-inflicted suffering for itself. You want to know how suffering is created for the human species that it doesn't need to experience? We believe what's not true. We refuse to accept what is true. That's why self-inflicted suffering exists in our species. And if we are to become wise, we need to stop doing both of those things, and then we'll stop creating suffering for ourselves. So let's look at consciousness and the human brain, okay? Because consciousness is an intangible force, okay? It's something that exists, but you can't really see it. Many people even have a hard time explaining what it is. But there is physiological expressions for consciousness in the physical domain, and the brain is one of them. And of course, people will say, well, don't leave out the heart. Of course, the heart is also very important. Heart has an even bigger electromagnetic field than the brain and is tied into the physiology in an even more complex way than the brain is. But we need to understand the basic structure of the brain to understand the types of imbalances that go on within it that lead to these debilitating conditions within humanity that continue to create suffering for us. And also, what these belief systems do is they prevent the activation of the heart and the actions of care and action. Not only do they prevent real knowledge from manifesting within the being, they prevent care and they create apathy and they create inaction, laziness, inaction, and cowardice, so that we don't actually act and take action based upon what we've come to know. So let's look at how the brain and consciousness actually work. People will also try to give ridiculously overcomplicated and mystified definitions of what consciousness means. And many people are even scared of the term, okay? We have to demystify these terms and bring them down to real simple English and real simple concepts that the average person can grasp, okay? And stop trying to make it more complicated than it is. Being conscious of something, meaning having consciousness of it, is an ability of the being to recognize patterns. Remember, this is all about pattern recognition. To recognize patterns and meaning with respect to events that are taking place or have taken place, okay, both within oneself, okay, in the inner realm, in the lesser realm, the realm of the individuated consciousness, and in the realm in which the self exists and operates, the macrocosm. So let's break it down, right? Ability of a being to recognize patterns and meaning with respect to events taking place within oneself, the microcosm, and in the macrocosmic world, the world at large. And the events taking place is the truth. So it's our ability to accurately perceive truth of what has happened and what is happening. That's consciousness. That's consciousness. And it's made way overly complicated by people. It's mostly made overly complicated in the New Age movement, again, which I can't stress enough how big of a deception it is. For people, really have to go and check out my work on the New Age deception. Okay, it's on my website. It's in the video section and it's in the podcast section. It's a 7-hour presentation, but I'm telling you, it will be as worthwhile for you to check out as this seminar. So that's what consciousness is. Now, how does consciousness express? There's a difference between what it is and how it expresses in our life. Consciousness expresses. I ask people, just tell me, what are the ways you could ever make yourself known to any other being? How can any other being come to know who you are in this incarnation, in this physical manifestation? How could they possibly come to know you? How could you manifest yourself or make yourself known to them? And there's only 3 ways: thoughts, emotions, and actions. Okay? And I would say speech falls into the line of the combination of thoughts and emotions. And speech is also a form of action. I'm using force to, make the air flow over my vocal cords to make sounds come out so that you can hear what the concept I'm trying to express. So it is a form of action. And it derives from what we have thought up to this point and the emotions that we have, and we could express it through speech. So thought, emotion, and action. Thought you have to look at as the creative force that is the expression for consciousness within the individual. Okay? So it's a neutral force. You don't look at your thoughts as masculine or feminine, do you? But you do look at them as creative forces. In order for anything to manifest in the physical domain, it had to first exist as a thought. This computer, somebody had to envision all the parts, how it works, how it's put together. Okay? This camera equipment, the clothes you're wearing, the seats, everything that exists had to first exist in the realm of thought. Had to. By law. Then it comes into physical manifestation through action. Your emotions are a polarized component, you could look at it as. It is a feminine aspect of consciousness. Because other people don't feel your emotions, they can perceive or sense them. You're the one who's feeling the emotions in your physiology. It's an internal expression. You feel emotions inwardly, inside in the physiology. Hence, this is a feminine expression for consciousness. It is something that is not externalized and put out. It is something that is felt within. So the emotions in the mind-body-spirit connection are the spirits in which we do something. Okay, so that's the feminine force or the spirit. Of course, thoughts are within our mind, hence that's the mind component of the consciousness. Then there's a marriage between them. Okay, so you can look at thoughts as the creative essence, which then blends with or marries to the feminine. Now, see, we're getting into a notion that is taught in many different religious traditions. It's called the Trinity. And I challenge anybody, go and look at any of the Trinities that exist in any of the religions. You can go back to Babylon. You can go to the Indus Valley traditions. You can go to the Egyptian and Cometian traditions, the Christian traditions. Every single religious tradition that is taught of a Trinity, okay, it is always a father creator, a sacred feminine figure, okay, of some kind that the father then impregnates or inseminates in some form. And then from that offspring is born a male child, always. Okay, what we're talking about here is the father being the mind, the creative essence, then the spirit or the emotions being the sacred feminine essence, okay, or the Holy Spirit, the emotions, and then the child, the male child, is behavior. It is the active or masculine principle that actually interacts with the physical world to change it, and hence that is the only way to actually save ourselves. And again, people in religious thinking will immediately attack this and say, you're saying that saving ourselves will not come through faith. Yes, I am. Saving ourselves will only come through action. Action will save humanity. Faith will not do it. So sorry to again, smash another egoic attachment that people have to religious notions. But these religions are created by the control system. Okay? People don't understand that exoteric Christianity is created by the dark occult, of the ancient dark occult mystery schools. They don't understand where this religion came from because they haven't studied astrotheology. And I'm not telling you there's no good concepts in any religion. I say take all the good concepts and leave the nonsense. Because one of the nonsense is that you need to believe in something to be saved from the current human condition. You don't need to believe in a thing. You need to know the truth. And right in their own religion, there it is. Let me just stay on this for a moment, because in their own scripture, the exoteric Christian scriptures, what is the one prescription that the Christ figure gives to the people when he is asked about freedom? He's only asked about freedom like once in the Gospels, okay? In the words attributed to his teachings. And they want to know what will save us, what will make us free, and what is his prescription? No, that is not. There's something missing there. You're close. What is the actual saying? Know the truth. Knowing the truth will make you free. That's the prescription, even in exoteric Christianity. It's right there in the Gospels. But Christians don't want to hear that, because the controllers in the church who came from the dark priest class gave them this nonsense that all you have to do is believe and everything will magically change. Well, good luck with that. When people's behaviors have no alignment with morality, you think your belief's going to change something? Again, let me know how that works out for you. And again, I'm not mincing words up here. I'm telling it like it really is. I don't care who it offends. So the expressions for consciousness are thoughts, emotions, and actions, which are likened to, in the consciousness community, of mind, spirit, and body. And it's a trinity: a father creator, which is the thoughts, the mind; the feminine essence, which is the mother of the trinity; the emotions, the inward aspects, the spirit. And then they give birth. When the thoughts and the emotions come together, they give birth to action in the world, which is the male child. This is very important to understand. I hope everybody is clear. This is our internal trinity, which constitutes the expressions for consciousness. Okay? So let's move on. Yes. Okay, how much time? It is. Okay, we're going to stop right there and take a break. We will resume at 1:15 precisely. Okay, so you want to come in a few minutes early to get settled? I will start again at 1:15 p.m. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right.
That's just like one of 3 parts. I don't really, let me change. There we go. Yeah, so that's one of, it's like 8 years long. The first 2,
What does it start to get into? Like, because at the very beginning, he's talking about this pyramid, and they're up at the top are these truths that are hidden from us. Does he start to get into what are those things?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It just, it seems like too much information until later, and then you're like, oh, it would have been kind of hard to understand without all the stuff in the beginning. But it's long. It's long form. Mark's got kind of a dated 90s presentation style that, we're all as creative as we possibly can be. And that's why he's trying to teach other people to go out and do their own stuff or figure out their own ways of presenting the message. But it's hard to, like he said in the beginning, it's hard to grasp everything without watching the whole thing. That's why, but sitting for 8 hours, I'm not going to try and make you do anything like that in one sitting, obviously.
But
so I don't, you probably won't have much to say on it. I'm not expecting you to have much to say about it yet. But yeah.
Hey, can I chime in real quick?
Go ahead, Darren.
Did Jeremy get to see that short that you isolated from one of Mark's podcasts where he says, whose bodies do who do the bodies belong to? Who do the bodies of animals belong to? Did you see that short, Jeremy?
I probably should have just showed him a bunch of Mark's vegan stuff first, but
yeah, that short was amazing. He was saying, if you're into natural law, whose body does the chicken's body? Who does the chicken's body belong to? It's not yours. The answer is right there. And I was just looking.
Conspiracy.
Yeah, I
No,
was
don't
just
do it.
looking through the Sanskrit dictionary, and I'm looking up the word pishacha, and it means demon or evil spirit, and the etymology is from the root verbal root pish, which is to carve or prepare meat. Because of the demon's fondness for meat, they're called pishachas. And it's defined in the Monier-Williams Sanskrit Dictionary as an ogreish imp, infernal demon, or devil.
Huh. Yeah.
Meat eaters.
Well, you said it before we started this. You said he eventually became vegan. So was he teaching this stuff before being vegan?
He was vegetarian for
Hmm.
like 12, 13 years, which is way too long.
Mhm.
And finally, actually, someone who comes on my show often, she had hit him up when he was doing a live show, and she was just like, bro, you've been talking about carnism a long time, and you're still eating dairy, let's call it what it is. You're still a carnist. And like, it kind of, that was what we call forced shadow work. When you see someone's bad actions, but they don't see it, and you have to show them like, hey, and like, you kind of have to put them on the spot so they actually listen to this, so they actually think about it. But he was able to be like, oh yeah, you're right. And his kind of way of, we don't like, he's given a lot of his followers a lot of excuses for not being vegan. He wants them to find it on their own, so he's not very he would say maybe militant about it. But he's his it was cool when he finally came around. And his last he's done a podcast that has like 650 episodes, and his last bunch of podcasts are really pure gold, vegan gold, basically. Like, he finally got fed up with the carnists and like let them all have it, and it's some of his best work, but it lost him a majority of his following. I don't know, like that video has close, I think, like 600,000 views. Like, he was very, very well-known guy before he went vegan, and going vegan, he definitely lost
Even
his
people
team.
around him are not vegan, and it's disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked because like we were watching this, like the main point of this was about two-party system and me being liberal, but it was hard to listen to this through like without the lens of like animal ag, because that's what I was hearing the whole time. So I
Yeah.
was attempting to listen to this through the two-party system lens, just to apply what you were talking about to this, but I was just hearing animal ag, animal ag.
Yeah, for
Of
sure.
course, that's like my main focus, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, when things
Yeah.
are
Well, that's a good sign,
right,
because you might not be, you, like I said, it feels to me like you're pretty close. But yeah, it's like, it's kind of hard. Well, it's hard walking into something you don't know what you're really getting into. So it's hard, even if you're around cool people, to like, be comfortable enough, or not, or just, not be like, what the hell am I getting myself into? Who is this guy? Like,
yeah, no. I mean, well, I'll say, like, from my takeaway was that I didn't really disagree with a lot of what he said, but I didn't feel like I got a ton of information. The point, I think that's probably by design, though. Like, as you said, this is really part of a much longer thing. It kind of
yeah.
felt to me like we were like in the first day of class and we're reading the
Yeah.
syllabus.
Well,
Like
you got to dumb stuff down, and that's kind of, I mean, I
yeah.
think that's what he's
I think this
Yeah.
good
is
at
Jeremy
doing.
knows how
So,
to listen and pay attention. And there's people who have seen Mark's stuff a bunch of times and have
they
not
just don't
like
do it.
comprehended anything. We've seen that ourselves. Yeah.
Well, that's funny you say that, because that was kind of what I was taking away. And I didn't want to say it and sound arrogant, but I was almost thinking, like, can we get to the AP class? Because because he spent kind of like 30 minutes. Like, first of all, that last point that he made about, like, gravity is not going to care if the little girl walks over to the cliff. He kind of rehashed that for like 30 minutes. And like I got it.
Yeah.
Like correct me if I'm wrong. I kind of try to summarize like the 2 hours that he basically went over, and this is an oversimplification, but his points were basically be open-minded. There are forces hiding information from you. I wrote it out. Words don't always mean what they seem. So he went through a lot of word definitions, and that the populace is ignorant, essentially, or ignorant, as he put it. Which I agree with all of those things, really. And like I said, it's kind of hard for me to not just view that entirely through a vegan lens. So like I'm trying to challenge myself to do it from a political lens.
It gets a little bit. I mean, again, this is only a third of what this presentation holds. And yeah, it starts a little slow, but it gets more into, the statism thing later on. He's just, I think he's just like, he's prepping people that might be a little bit less based than we are.
Is Two Masks too brutal for introduction? Two Masks.
What's that?
Two Masks, same face.
That's a good one, but
communism, Nazism.
What I'm curious, like, what was y'all's perspective? Like, did y'all watch this as like your intro to him?
Mark,
and, like, what was your takeaway?
It was one of it. Demystifying the occult was probably the first one, and then this one, and then the podcast. Mark kind of got me out of the two-party system, and also out of the religion paradigm. Although encouraged me to, since I was studying occultism and religion to try to find truth. I believed it was out there. He got me to reject the superstitious bullshit, but keep the good things. Like I was vegetarian for years as a monk, but then when I found out, like, this religion is bullshit, I think the Vedas were like in pursuit of the truth, but in practice, because of human beings, it was bullshit because most people are on some bullshit. I left the religion, and I also left vegetarianism. And then when I found Mark's work, I'm like, wait a minute, Mark speaks really highly of the Vedas and the yoga traditions and Vedanta. So I was like, wait a minute, just because people practice bullshit doesn't mean that all the information is bullshit. So I went back to it, and then ended up, dropping out of the two-party paradigm, and also, with the help of Mark and VGT, just went vegan, because I'm like, yeah, why the fuck not? If it pisses me off when people bring other baggage and bullshit and try to claim to be about truth, why not just drop all the bullshit regardless of how it made me feel? And once you lose the cognitive dissonance, you're pretty much always right. Like, as far as like the sentiment goes, you might be off on some facts, but if the point is to not do harm, how can you go wrong if that's your ethos in life? How can you go seriously wrong? Maybe a business won't work, or maybe your credit score is bad, but like, can you really be fundamentally wrong with don't do harm and don't take shit from people? You really can't. Don't steal. Don't kneel. Don't steal.
I've got a question for y'all. Because I feel like it's a lot of this is sort of about authority, and this is a bit of a self plug, but I just did this interview with this guy Stephen Lee August, who wrote Vegans versus the Verses. He's like a Christian animal rights activist. Really nice guy. Cool discussion. Check it out on my channel. But I posed this question to him towards the end of the interview, and he didn't actually answer the question. And I was curious. It was basically, if you learned that God, like, you were talking to God, and this is the highest power in the universe, right? And you just knew that this is true, and God told you you're supposed to eat animals, what would you do? Like, would you reject that? Would you accept that?
I would question the nature of the being that is telling me to do that.
Right.
Because, yeah.
But in this hypothetical, you know, this is God. This is the God, the most powerful. But you're saying you question the most powerful being, essentially.
Well, I mean, in the hypothetical, I mean, it's presupposing that. Then I guess I have free will to do or not do that. I'd probably ask what happens if I don't. You know?
So
And then it's
essentially,
like, well, am I going to get killed for not killing another being? What does that make this deity?
well, so your answer is basically that yes, I can buck authority, essentially. And that's just what I was trying to get
Yeah,
at.
because actually government is based on this notion of a hierarchy and a divine right to rule and a divine command to obey. So that's why this is master-slave dynamic, and it's sadomasochism. And then it gets us to internalize that we deserve death and hell because we're born with original sin, and we're supposed to celebrate the Lamb of God who was slaughtered for our sins, but then also to praise it, but also feel guilty about it. It causes a complete severance of the it's basically like a cremation of care ritual, and then a ritual mourning for the conscience that you kind of have but don't have because it can be scrubbed with the confession. It's to simultaneously identify with the victim and the murderer, abjure everything, as in like take conscience and judgment out of it, and basically turn all of ourselves into a voodoo doll. Yeah.
Because for me, the answer is easy. Like I would just say no.
Yeah, I would just say no too.
And
I would just
I
say you're a
care.
very powerful, creepy demon, and I don't want anything to do with you. You want blood on an altar. You didn't like Cain's vegetables. You wanted murder sauce. You're sick, bro. Your name is Set, and the Hyksos worshipped you in Thebes, and you're the black flame of Satan. No, thank you.
The first contradiction in the Bible is what is it? Cain killing Abel.
Yeah, Cain was like, dude, you're a psychopath.
Doesn't make any sense.
He's like, you're a psychopath, bro. You took this like spotless young animal and you slaughtered it, and this being liked it. He's fucked, you're fucked. And Jehovah kind of thought it was funny, and he was like, nobody can touch Cain because like he fucking whacked somebody. You know, I don't understand that, but you know, basically he was like, probably was like Abel's blood tasted better than the billy goat or whatever. Sick.
Well, it's the opposite of compassion, and that's the whole point right off the bat. It was supposed to be compassion, and then he let someone kill someone. Yeah. It's called an interpolation. We found out recently. Interpolations are things that were added to the stories, to the scriptures later on.
Commercials.
Which is all the carnism in the Bible was put in later on. If you go back and look at the earlier scriptures, the non-canonical stuff.
Oh yeah, and then Cain left and went to the land of Nod when there were other people, even though technically there shouldn't have been other people. Then you find out that there were no other people. It just means that they were the first of Yahweh's people, because there were people in the land of Nod where Cain went to, because why would he need to put a mark on Cain if there were no other people? That's a made up story, but what I'm saying is if Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel, then they had to have Seth later, which is a nod to the ancient Egyptian deity of evil named Seth. But you know, the story itself doesn't make sense, but there were other people where Cain went after he whacked Abel. So it's just all nonsense. But it also is the beginning of racism because of the Kenites.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think like why I like that question that just popped to me is just because it kind of just gets to the heart of whether or not someone is just like, when we're debating something about God or even science or something, like if we already feel that
Garland,
we know what is right, then does any of that matter? Like,
yeah,
and I guess to a lot of people, it would matter because they would say, I follow God or I follow Jesus or whatever. But their belief is that that deity is good. But what if the deity wasn't good? And it'd be interesting to know, like, with a lot of these people, if they would say still, yeah, but that's God. So that's what, I follow God unquestionably.
after after the first debate Ali and I did with Garland, we were live with some people. They just pulled some people up, and I think someone asked us that. They were like, "What if you found out?" Or no, it was, "What if you found out for sure, without a doubt, that eating meat was healthier than veganism? Would
Yeah.
you still do it?" I think that's what they asked us.
Yeah.
And
And it's a good question. It's a good hypothetical, because my answer to that would still be, yeah, I'd still be vegan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just kind of makes like a lot of the things we debate about moot, honestly. I mean, we still win most of the arguments, the debates. I mean, if not all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, if someone else comes to a different conclusion, then they're just operating on a different plane.
Yeah. That's the moral relativism.
yeah.
The I get to choose what's moral and not, or the government says what's moral or not.
Yeah.
That's kind of what these videos are kind of trying to, and like again, you might know all this stuff already, or at least, maybe like 80% of it. But he's dumbed it down for the masses. So we all kind of, most teachers are pretty cringe, like it's not very common to come by teachers that are like really exciting to watch. It is kind of long-winded and can seem simplistic at times, but it's pretty specific, like he's not saying anything for no reason. Like, he definitely comes back around everything.
But if I may say, also the attention span these days, because of
Yeah.
TikTok and Instagram, it's
This
like
came out a long
goldfish,
time ago.
Yeah,
like
people could
crazy.
do that.
Documentary. Who can watch a documentary these days? Like,
I can. I feel like I'm getting longer form as I get older, because and just like doing podcasts. I've done like 8-hour podcasts before, and I'll do like 4 or 5, and all the all these other podcasts are all an hour, and I'm like, what do you get done in an hour? Like, I can't even. An hour is like nothing.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's and that's why, like, the first debate we had with Garland, we're like, whoa, 2 hours is not long enough to have any of these discussions, because he thought he won, because we didn't really get anywhere in the first round.
exactly.
The first one, because it's like, we're presenting what we're our arguments, you present yours, then let's go away, look at each other's arguments, and come back and do it again. And that's what ended up happening. And so, you can't get anything done in a couple hours. Everything
these
needs to
informations
be
are repeated all the time. I listened to the podcast number 1, and I'm now at 147, and
yeah,
it brings up old stuff, because you have to
relearn stuff,
like not remind yourself, right?
yeah
All the time, because we are all the time bombarded with like biased information, right?
Yeah, like this. So when I first came across the natural law podcast, this presentation, I watched maybe 20 minutes of it, and I'm like, I can't watch 8 hours of this. Out of your mind. And I lost out on a lot over the past 10 years. I feel like I feel like I could have had a much better direction, a purpose, than just yelling at government all day and being upset that government's doing all these awful things and blaming the libs or blaming the Republicans and blaming all this other stuff, which is just a distraction. And they're doing a really good job distracting us by keeping us, focused on things that don't really matter, while they're off causing hell on earth, dropping bombs on people with our money, while we just squabble over nonsense, literal nonsense, Republican versus liberal nonsense, and squabble over which person's gonna be the leader, and then complain about that leader. And since it's a never ending distraction, which keeps us from doing the things that matter. I see you do a lot of work, so you obviously have a balance. Most people don't. Most people, like, Facebook is kind of like just a cesspool of misinformation. And
To
people
be
just
honest,
love staying down there. It's crazy.
yeah, to be honest, I don't really have a balance. I really am just sort of ignoring what's going on. And I like,
Well, I
when
mean,
it
you
comes
play
to
video
election.
games, and then you do your
Oh, right.
your
Yeah,
video
yeah.
vegan presentations,
Right,
and
right.
you like you're
Yeah,
not
but
just
but I ignore politics for the most part. And
that's
like, I'll
good.
tell you, like, I mean, for me, veganism and animal rights activism were very liberating because I felt very powerless, operating in that paradigm that you're talking about, because
Yeah.
I knew I was very powerless. I mean, what do you have power over? Like, every couple years you can vote in an election, and you're
Yeah.
like 0.00001% of the populace or whatever.
Yeah.
So animal rights gave me purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
Now, I still vote. I still care about it. I still encourage people to vote. That's where we probably differ. But
Yeah.
I did spend some time on it. I was volunteering with the campaigns towards the latter stage of it. But if it was going to take me away from animal rights for a very long time, then I would see that as a complete waste. Because, you're just not going to have as much impact. This is something that we can control much more easily, and
Yeah.
has a bigger impact, in my opinion. Now, I will say, like, I do think that there's daylight. There's some ways to work veganism, animal rights into these politicians, potentially political parties. We're not there yet. I don't know how quickly we would get there. I'm not quite as pessimistic as you are. I mean, I'm seeing like some of the, like, I'm seeing White Coat Waste do a lot of work with the MAGA Republicans to shut down laboratories. That's a positive step. Is that tackling animal farming? Of course not. But and is anybody going to tackle animal farming? Probably not in the near future. But it's a step, I suppose. I'm trying to put the most positive, sunshiny spin on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to spend all my time obsessed with politics. I was getting nothing done. I was wasting my life.
Yeah. And I would argue that it is kind of a waste of life if you spend that much time. And I'll say, as someone who is liberal, I do consider myself that. My family, for the most part, and members of my family who were quite devastated by the election results, and to this day are still getting themselves upset and downhearted about things that are happening week to week. And I'm always just like, when they text me that, I'm always just like, stop paying attention to it so much.
Turn the TV off.
Right. Right. And I know it's because they care. So it's like, I don't want to discourage people from caring about things that are beyond them. That's a good quality. Honestly, it could be seen as a positive quality, but it can be self-destructive. And it's like external depression. Like, you're making yourself depressed over things that you can't control.
And you're focusing on something that you can, like, you're focusing on something that you can't control while ignoring the thing you can control, which is what you do in the world.
Right.
I mean,
I was really, sorry to interrupt, but I was really lucky, like, right after the election. And I hated the results of the election, but I had, for about 10 days, I was going to watch my friend's pup. And so for those 10 days, and this very needy puppy, I was just hanging out with the pup, and it was like a great distraction. It also just kind of brought me center back down to, this is what I actually control. Can I make this little pup's day good and fun? Yeah, I can do that. I can't worry about what Trump's doing.
Exactly.
Like,
and all that worrying, creates stress hormones in your body, which shortens your life.
Yeah, and makes the meat untasty, I hear.
Yeah. Ew, it spoils the taste of the meat.
Yeah. I know. When I was real enmeshed in politics, I probably tasted like shit. Jeffrey?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty chill these days, honestly. Like I don't get bent out of shape too much about. I'm pretty zen, but you know,
You
that
should
doesn't mean
be
I can't
open to
slip.
being bent out of shape though.
Oh yeah. Oh,
You
I
don't
am.
want to get fully imbalanced and just be chill all the time.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not.
And that's what's happened to too many people in our society is they've just become sheep and moldable, and they just don't see, they don't talk about morality. Like it's like a cop walking around not thinking of the Constitution. Like obviously he's going to get in trouble. He's going to break some laws. He's going to violate some people's rights because he's not actually thinking about what's right and what's wrong. And it's the same for people walking around, not constantly asking themselves, how does this, how am I affecting the world by this action, and like, all the carnage stuff. It's like these guys think that that's just not that big of a deal, but it's one of the most harmful things we do as humanity. What we're doing to the animals is pretty gnarly, and everyone just likes to blow it off and pat themselves on the back because they haven't killed their neighbor, like
Yeah.
in our freedom circle, we hang around in. It's all these dudes that are like, yeah, non-aggression principle. I'm so badass because I'm voluntarily getting along with my neighbor. And it's like, dude, you should be able to do that like right off the bat. Like that's not something you should spend 10 years patting yourself on the back about. Like you have to go beyond that and push the non-aggression axiom out to animals also. Obviously.
Or to throw some shade at liberals, patting yourself on the back because you changed your Facebook photo to the Black Lives Matter or whatever, like
virtue signaling.
We just have a ton of that. And I mean, like, I mean, one of the most disenchanting things that happened to me after watching Earthlings and getting into animal rights was going on a liberal blog and showing and posting the film Dominion and saying like, you guys watch this, all these liberals who claim to care. And I ended up getting banned from the site because when all these triggered liberals were like in my comments, I just kept responding, watch the film. And then they sent me a note. You can't badger people to watch. Like, I don't remember. Maybe was I a dick in some instance? I don't remember. Probably not though. And I was just like, fuck you people. Like you claim to care about all these people, but when it has anything that inconveniences you in the slightest, you can't be fucked. So those were I would have considered that to be my tribe, like my people. Like I thought like we all cared, and I was sorely disappointed.
Yeah, because most people Mark likes to call them de facto Satanists. Like they're not like worshiping upside down crosses and pentagrams in the forest and stuff. They're actually just being satanic, like shitty people.
Right.
And that's most Christians, unfortunately, especially. Holy crap. Just getting into the Bible recently and looking into all this stuff, it's just like, okay, most of these Christians that are barking at me have no clue what they're talking about. And, like at least mildly fault. Like there was a guy who we debated a couple times, super Christian guy, had come up on the show and we talked to him about the Bible, and he lost both times painfully. But like, I keep an eye on the guy, and it's like, he's just, he's like 30 something. He's looking like he's 50. He's letting himself go. He's like eating garbage food from gas stations and like talking about it on Facebook. And it's just like, bro, how do you think how is this being aligned with anything in, any of the positive, ethics of the Bible? Like and then these dudes, instead of erring on the side of caution about eating animals or not, considering the Garden of Eden is vegan and God's ideal future is vegan, they just continue the sinful diet. And it's like, wait a minute, like, so I'm more serious about this than you, but you're the Christian guy who's screaming at everybody Bible verses all day. Like, I haven't even read the book yet,
Yeah.
but I get it more than you do, obviously. It's
Is
about
your-
compassion. Compassion.
your-
Death, killing something is not compassionate. Period. That's all you need to know. Is that your property to take? No, it is not. That is stealing. It's never okay to steal unless it's the government. The government's allowed to steal. They're allowed to have a monopoly on force, which is that's against what is right, and that's against natural law. No matter how many people get around and vote for it, it's not right, and it shouldn't be something that we support in any way. But you sound like you sound like you're not. I mean, you might not even want to call yourself a liberal, considering how things are these days. And because of what I'm hearing you say, you sound like you're more of a centrist, more of like an anarchist type, maybe not fully against the government yet, but at least like some sort of minarchist that doesn't believe, that sees that there could be virtues in both sides, but as far as like the politicians go, they're all being paid by the same people and they're all pushing the same agenda. They just distract you with this little bullshit, little squabbles. Let's bring up arguing about abortion again. Let's bring up, arguing about people, immigrants and stuff. Like they bring all the government powers that be, the media, they rile everyone up and get each other against each other, when we should be riled up, upset at the government for doing all this evil shit with our money and not giving us a choice in it whatsoever. Like, a lot of people think if we got rid of the government, like it would be like the Wild West, right? But like, it actually would just be the same. We'd just have a choice in things instead of not having a choice. Like, we could have a choice whether or not we want to, by living in different communities and getting down to more of a community level, you'd have different flavors of communities where you could go and you wouldn't have to pay taxes that go towards dropping bombs on other people.
And your
part of
vegan chocolate
why-
will not be
Sorry,
taxed.
What's
Sorry.
that?
No,
I
I
was-
said- okay, sorry.
No, go ahead, Ari.
I like when you buy vegan food, junk food, whatever, that they will not be taxed to go subsidize the dairy industry, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Stuff like that would be happening, where you can live someplace where they don't allow, there would be a vegan community where we wouldn't allow the kind of that kind of stuff. And
Well,
there
that
would
may
be
be
communities that wouldn't subsidize meat and dairy, and where dairy would be meat and dairy would be really expensive because it would be the actual price that it's supposed to be, not the cheaper price that government has subsidized. So everything's cheap. Government's paying for 80% of the meat and dairy.
cheap.
People wouldn't be eating it as much if it was 3 times the price. Like, that would be the biggest. That's, I tell people, they laugh, oh, the world will never be vegan. I'm all, watch when they take the subsidies away, how quick you'll be eating vegan at least 6 days a week, because you won't be able to afford this stuff.
Well,
And
I
the
was going to
farmers
say
will
that.
encourage-
I was going to say
Let
that. What?
Let him go, Aryan.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I'm not as devastated. Maybe that's why I'm not as devastated as, like, say, some of my family members as with Trump being in there, because the system is just kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that. I'd rather it function well, but what was functioning well was monstrous. So when it comes to animals, what's functioning is monstrous. And I would like that to go away. Now, I mean, I just don't see, empowering someone like Trump, who I view as like one of the worst vile human beings on the planet, or at least empowered by those people. And like, maybe we disagree or agree on that. But
I would even talk about presidents.
yeah, well,
But, I mean, as we speak, bro, 2 trillion just left the economy. He's destroying the economy. Maybe we'll get no subsidies because the government can't pay for him anymore. That would be fucking awesome.
I mean, exactly. That's why, if it falls apart, and also I also just feel like we deserve him. Like to me, like the fact that we have Trump in the White House, I just feel like okay, well, you put them there. So, I mean, I just don't have that same like despair because I
Yeah.
feel like I kind of feel like fuck humanity. When I talk about, I call myself a liberal, it's basically just saying how I vote and how I kind of believe in human rights. And that's kind of it. I'm not really
Well,
attached
voting
to
is
the
the
label.
opposite of believing in human rights. You're choosing to put humans in slavery when you vote.
I disagree with that because,
Well, what are you doing when you're voting?
well, when you,
You're saying, I want this master.
well, if you
What you're
didn't vote,
saying.
let's say, well, the way I see it is like if you, yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't really believe the same way as you do that the president's like the master. But let's say you had two masters and one of them is going to be the master and you had a say over that. And that's just how I view it. You have a say over that. And if I believe that this master is, to use the overused phrase, the lesser of two evils, then yes, I feel like I have a duty to try to put that person in. And I don't think not voting is doing anything other than giving the person who I think is worse a better chance of being the master. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I come down on voting. Also, it's just like a few minutes of your time to go, and depending on where you live, but I got in and
Yeah,
out
but
and
what if you don't
voted
like
and,
either of them and you think they're both 100% evil?
well, at that point, then I don't think you have any obligation to put one in over the other. But if you do believe that one person, and by the way, I'm not saying you have an obligation to do any of this, but in my mind, if I believe that someone is better than the other and one of them is going to be leading the country, then I feel myself, I would not feel comfortable with letting the person who I thought was worse be in there. Now, if you think they're equally as bad, which I just fundamentally disagree with, Democrats and Republicans, that's probably where we differ the most, is that you
They
probably
both vote
view
for
them
war.
equally.
They both pay for subsidies. They both bomb children overseas. They
Yeah,
both have
no, they do.
supported racism. They
Uh,
both support taxation. They both support the court system, the police system that kills thousands of people.
yeah.
They all support this stuff,
So
and
you
I
could,
don't agree with it. So
so
I
you,
would never vote and say yes. I think that one of these people, this system should still be in
well,
going on. I represent myself and what I believe at all times. And instead of voting, I produce content and change people's minds. Instead of telling them to go vote for a master, I tell them to be their own master and start avoiding the government and, avoid just bending over and allowing them to take money, which they go and do awful things with. I don't agree in just siding with some side who's predetermined how I think, and then pit me against my neighbor,
right.
and just let it happen and just just
Well,
fuel it. I don't really, it doesn't make any sense. And the last time I voted for Ron Paul, and he got more votes than everyone, yet they just unseated him. So why would I ever spend? They duped me again. I thought I was never going to vote. Then they dupe me again. I go and vote again, and they just unseat my guy. You think I'm going to go waste, even if it does take 2 minutes?
mhm.
I'm not going to fucking waste any more time. And I'm going to tell everybody to not waste their time because all their votes go in the trash. So instead of validating this system that is just obviously garbage, I would just, like what Mark's saying, instead of seeing things the way you see them, see
Mhm.
things for the truth. It's not, like we could see things in ways that aren't true. The truth is government is fucking evil. It's the most
Well,
evil thing in the world. It is
well, I
not
had this.
doing anything that it says good that it's doing. It is doing nothing but spread hell on earth by supporting factory farming and wars.
Well,
We don't have to do these things. There are different ways of doing them, making and pointing inward and changing ourselves and helping our friends change each other instead of constantly pointing outward or voting for the guy that's going to control the other party.
Mhm.
It's just like I keep saying, it's just an endless vicious cycle of the definition of insanity, of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, and keep voting for this next guy. This next guy is going to do it. Oh, if we only get Bernie in there, if we only got Obama, Obama's going to change the world. Oh, guess what? Obama didn't do jack shit for anything. He didn't change the court system. He didn't change how many people were getting killed. He didn't change how many deportations we're having. It's all a bullshit waste of time. And it's all not what I believe you actually believe in. So that's all, that's just
Well,
what,
yeah.
and,
Well, just a
and just,
couple.
I don't expect, like you to change right now or anything. Just,
I don't think I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
I'm not
It's just
saying
all
that.
food for thought.
Well, by the way, I'm not saying that because I'm closed-minded. I don't think. I think I'm just disagreeing with you that not voting would accomplish anything. Like, let's
But
say
voting
one
doesn't
person
accomplish
voted,
anything.
then that person who got the one vote is dancing their way to the White House.
But
I had
there's
this
an
guy
electoral
ask me,
process, and it's never just one vote. That's not how it's set up.
well, sure, but I'm just simplifying. I had this
Yeah,
one
but
guy
no,
ask,
again, but what you're doing is you're simplifying to an unrealistic your perspective of it, which isn't actually
yeah.
how it is. The
Well,
votes go in the trash, and one guy is not going to sway the vote in any direction. It's all set up to be bullshit. It's all bullshit, waste of
well,
time, and we could be spending all this energy on doing the right thing and actually representing what we actually believe in, and not just siding with our team, which is
well,
something that's been brainwashed into us since birth. Is
okay.
just siding with our team.
Well,
And
one point is that you can make a choice in an election without making your neighbor your enemy. I mean, I hang out with people all the time, I'm sure, who voted for Trump. In fact, I know this because I mean, they've told me that. And we can even talk about the politics and stuff, and we're chill with each other. The other thing is that when you talked about like the Democrats, the Republicans, they all support war, they all support this stuff. So let's just take war by itself. Let's take war
okay,
and say the Democrats support war, the Republicans support war. There can still be a better choice between those two, because which war? Like, that matters to me. So for instance, like if you're the Democrats and you support a country defending themselves against an aggressor like Ukraine against Russia, whether or not you agree with that, that's what I see it as. So I
but
support
it's still,
Ukraine
war is
defending you.
never okay.
But
And just because
one choice.
we were just watching Mark talk about how he talked about the lady that's like, oh, the way I see things, and it's like the way
Well,
you
but
see things might not be right, and anyone supporting any war at any time is not thinking straight.
well,
And
I disagree.
especially
I
because the
fundamentally
one
disagree with that.
you pointing out Russia and Ukraine, this is
Yeah.
like obviously like propaganda. Like there's
Well, to me,
obviously propaganda. You believe what you believe because your party believes that, and that's what we've been
I mean,
force
maybe,
fed. Yes, no, not maybe, for sure, without a doubt.
Okay, well,
So unless you live there, and even if you live there, you still don't know what the fuck's going on. Like
I mean, you could be right.
people, people don't
Well,
know shit when their bombs falling down. They don't even know why the government's fighting.
well,
So it's like, unless you're one of these elites or elitists, like who knows what game they're playing. And definitely, I'd never side on any war.
I would. I side on war.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but you don't
yeah.
know the truth,
I'm very
though. You might not
anti-Nazi.
know
I'm
the
very.
truth. And so what if you're siding for a war where you've been duped, and you're actually siding for the wrong side, because
It's possible.
you don't
Yeah,
know everything in the world, because none of us
yeah,
know enough to know the truth all the time. So
yeah. Well,
I can't see how that's a position. If
well,
like you could have been duped about Ukraine and Russia, right? Especially
yeah,
since it's
sure,
in the
sure.
news and it's all over the news and it's all they talk about.
Yeah,
We
sure.
could be duped.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
I concede that I could have been duped on any of these issues, but I think it's my job to try to get to the best answer that I could. And
but in your rhetoric, you go straight to I support Ukraine instead of war is bad.
Yeah, I support Ukraine because I see
Mhm.
Russia has invaded Ukraine.
But Russia's always been the boogeyman. They have the same bankers that we have.
Yeah, but they're in Ukraine. But they're
they're
in Ukraine,
they're a
my
boogeyman,
friend.
just like
Yeah,
the
sure,
Muslims
but
were, or ISIS. It's
sh-
just
sure, but
it's
they're in
political
Ukraine.
theater
They're
that
fighting
you
in
either
Ukraine.
fall for the political theater or you don't fall for the political theater.
Well, okay. But the point that I'm making is that one country invaded another country. They're fighting in Ukraine.
Who
So,
knows what happened there? We were involved in it. The French were involved. There's all kinds of stuff. And
well, the
history is
Russians
written by
shouldn't
the
be in
victor
Ukraine.
or
Yeah.
who's
Guys,
got
do you know
the
why?
biggest.
Do you know why the invasion happened? It's because they were inviting nuclear armed powers to the Russian border, where the Sea of Azov and Crimea are the Russian naval yards. It's their access to the Bosporus
Yeah, but
and the
I don't
Black
even know
Sea.
if you really know that, Darren.
No, I'm just saying, like, there's
That's
a
just the
reason why this
story that we're
territory
getting.
was disputed, and we were coercing them to join NATO. So what I'm saying is, none of this would have happened without large governments and international
Yeah.
organizations pressuring the
Okay.
country to join a military alliance. And any
Yes.
reasonable person would be nervous with heavily armed people who don't like them right on their border. So regardless of, I'm just saying it happened because of coercion from governments.
And Ukraine has been flopped 1,000 times in the last several hundred years. It's never been like this undisputed place. But war is bad,
Yeah,
and war
sure.
should never happen. And
Well,
taking sides because of political parties and because of
it's
what
not
media you
because of-
watch isn't
well,
necessarily like the right path. And that's all I'm saying. And
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not trying to
I would
attack
agree with
you. I'm
that.
just trying to, talk to you about this stuff because I see, the two-party paradigm is a major problem. Like you're saying, yeah, like I'm not for the two-party paradigm, but you are in your rhetoric. You sound very much like you are a
No.
card-carrying liberal who
I
just
am.
believes that that's the only way to save the world.
No.
When we're both being, we're all being duped. We've all been duped since our births to
Yeah.
believe this stuff, and it's all bullshit. It's
Oh.
all a waste of time.
Well, so just to
our
be
government
clear-
is there to keep us from advancing.
Yeah. So I just want to say I don't feel attacked at all. So don't feel like you got to apologize or preface that.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't
thank you.
feel attacked at all. Like, yeah, it's an interesting discussion. The
Yeah.
thing that I was talking about with the one person, the point that I was trying to make is that yeah, so I mean we're discussing it, so my rhetoric is, talking about this. I don't spend a great deal of time discussing this stuff, but my point was just that, like, and that's why I asked at the very beginning, what's the practical application of Passio's teachings, essentially, when it comes to voting or the two-party? Is it just to not vote? And my point was simply that if only one person was left that voted, then that person would win. The person who he voted for would win the election. It's like this guy asked me,
And then the wars will continue to happen. The subsidies to meat and dairy will continue to happen, and that president
Right.
isn't going to make any difference.
well,
Whether
I
it's
disagree.
Trump or
Yeah.
freaking Clinton or whoever, Kamala, it's not, these people aren't the ones in power. It's the bankers that play both sides like the political system is a reality TV show to distract us from the fact that like there's just some psycho bankers running things and some crazy people.
Well, I may
crazy
get to that
elites.
conclusion if I were to watch more Passio's stuff. Like, I just don't believe that's true. I do believe there are huge differences between the parties. Even if we're talking at, like, okay, let's say Donald Trump subsidized the meat and dairy industry with 40 billion and Kamala did it if she got elected with 39, that's a difference. So I think there are huge differences.
Do you have any, like, I mean,
No, I don't. No,
Like,
no.
do
I'm
you-
just saying.
like,
I'm just saying that there are differences between the two people, and
no, there
having
really isn't. If you
no,
look
no.
back
Listen.
on the macro, there's no difference.
Well,
Nothing
trust me.
changes when it comes to the things that we care about the most: humanity and animals.
Well,
You know,
I
like
covered
there's no
politics for
difference.
I'd say about a decade, where I covered state politics, and I will just tell you that my perception of what state politics are is that it's made up of people, imperfect people. I would interview
Yeah.
people who were very impressive. I would interview people who were very not impressive. And that's my takeaway. Republican, Democrat, there were people I liked, people I didn't like. I think they're all different. Like, I don't think they're all controlled by one thing. Now, the parties have a lot of control. I will grant that. Money has a lot of control. So, yeah, there's not a ton of daylight, but even to me, go ahead.
Positions of power attract psychopaths like flies to shit.
Yeah. No,
Me and you, we don't want to control thousands of people, millions of people. You know, so we're not going to be the ones that get in there. It's going to be some psycho that wants to control a massive amount of people and throw their agenda around. So as long as that's open, you know, we're going to have nonstop psychopath politicians on both sides. Being, you know, even like if we get the like reluctant Bernie Sanders in there, right? He'll immediately be corrupted with the money that will be thrown at him. So I don't trust any of these guys.
What about Ron Paul? What if he had gotten in?
Ron Paul's not a perfect dude.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was my last. I wouldn't vote for Ron Paul again. No, you know, but then I did just for some sort of change because, you know, but I don't believe that now. I don't believe Ron Paul would have been able to do anything. He would have been corrupted. You know, he might have lasted a little bit longer, hopefully, but some sketchy shit would have happened on the background. He definitely wouldn't have been he would have been taken out before he would have been able to make any difference.
Well, I would argue that Ron Paul would have gotten you closer to what you wanted. Not much closer, but I would have just argued
I don't
that.
think having a small government or a big government is any difference. A small government is just a vacuum and will immediately become a big government. So I don't really, his core principles I don't believe in anymore. But they got me into where I am now. They were the footsteps. You know, like deregulating the job market. Pretty good idea. Getting rid of the war on drugs. Probably pretty good idea to stop doing that.
Yeah.
You know,
so maybe even
all these
that
CIAs and FBIs and DOEs and, you know, all these alphabet organizations that are run by government types that are completely inept and don't do their job, yet they get paid tons of money. It's just, you know, it's like, have you been to DMV? Holy shit. You know, this is our government that we pay all this money to, that we get left in suspense, in desperation, you know, having half of our labor stolen from us just because we allegedly signed some social contract the day we were born.
Well, I just have a quick question, because like if the sort of theory is that abstaining from voting, right, it would be a powerful message to send. Couldn't you argue that's already happening when we've got like half the population who doesn't vote?
Yeah, the majority voter is the non-voter, and then that's awesome. But if they aren't doing anything besides not voting, then there's no point to it. But if you're an activist and you go out and actually, you know, educate and do stuff like that, get people out of this spiraling death spiral that they're in, chasing their tail basically over and over again with, you know, then it's far more, you know, you're going to get a far better result doing that than going and voting or telling people that they need to be involved in the system that is a satanic death cult system. I don't, you know, I don't have any arguments for government, and I'm not like a crazy person. Like I'm pretty logical,
No.
concise guy, and I
Yeah.
have no arguments for a federal government. Sure, local government, that's awesome. Local governments, like every community can have a different flavor of government, and that is an amazing idea to me, compared to what we have now, where we have no choice about our circumstances, and our lives are it's nothing but government monopolies, which we pay the most money for and get the least valuable product back. It's like the opposite of the free market.
Wouldn't the small governments you're talking about just be kind of like microcosms of the bigger problem?
No, I don't talk about small governments. That's why I said earlier it's a vacuum for a bigger government. Like,
but
a
you
small
just
government's just going to turn into a big government.
Yeah, but you just said you like the idea of the local government. That's what you said.
Yeah,
was a good
a
idea.
local government that or not. No, that's not necessarily, no, and that's not what I believe in. I believe in free market enterprise, private industry. Get a situation where the people have the power by voting for their dollar on what businesses should stay around. That is where we're supposed to be, not having this government that's like, oh, I'm going to make a deal with my friends and we're going to rob you guys and give you a garbage product. When you get free market enterprise involved, you get competition within businesses, competition that actually helps the customer the most, because you have these greedy board members trying to make the most money, obviously, but they know that they have to offer the best product for the lowest amount of money. Competition. We have no competition in our school system. We have no competition with any of this healthcare stuff. So we have these government propped up companies that are just shitting on the people with our tax dollars, basically, which is not really, an awesome situation for the small guy. But in a society where the people were allowed could choose the fate of a business, if a company offers, puts out some bad ketchup and it kills a couple kids, in that society, that company's gone the next day, and the next company that didn't poison that kid is going to be the one that gets the majority of the market share, which is how things would happen without government and deciding which, manipulating the market. If the federal government was gone tomorrow, it would be the greatest thing for the job market industry that's ever happened since the dawn of time. Everybody would just be able to start a business in their garage, get a job for less than minimum wage if they are willing to take that job. The people would just be able to get married without having to sign a fucking get the government involved and sign some contract with the government. There'd be all kinds of amazing. We'd advance 200 years probably in the first decade.
Yeah.
Government does nothing but slow us down. They do nothing but create hell on earth, and supporting it in any way, in my opinion, is just kind of a waste of time. But it's a very long conversation. I definitely wasn't expecting anything to happen tonight, but just wanted to get the conversation going.
Sorry to Aryan and Darren and Alicia, who are here. I didn't mean to dominate this with our discussion.
You're welcome anytime.
We could barely understand what he says half the time anyway.
Who?
You.
Is my English that bad, really?
I can understand you.
No, you have good English, Aryan.
I'm not like I don't speak like this, you like Natasha,
Natasha, who says that all vegans, what does she say? All vegans want a roasted steak. Roast chicken. All vegans want a roast chicken eventually.
Yes. I only have free range slaves, not chickens free-range chickens.
Yeah.
Same like governments. Like
Bone. It's
you
not
wanna
bone
be a
broth.
free-range,
It's beef stock.
tax farm. That's what governments are.
Yes, they are.
Now,
But anyway, it would be really awesome to keep the conversation going. Most people don't want to have this conversation more than once, but it would be really cool to keep
I
it
really
going.
would love if Jeremy watched the second and the third one.
It would be really
one.
cool if you could
Yeah,
if you would watch the rest of it with us.
Yeah.
While it does seem a little obvious right now,
Yeah.
you might learn something from it.
Well, that's why I said I thought we were watching basically like the syllabus reading. Like that's how a class goes. You kind of go through like the outline first, and then you get into the meat of the argument. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I said, it took me 15 years to watch that 8-hour video. People had showed it to me 1,000 times. Like, dude, you have to watch this at least just to get the base down, like, and I can't. And like, I wasn't ready to hear about anything spirituality wise either. And, even though I had been, a badass vegan activist growing up, like I still didn't have that part of it. And it's just helped me be a better activist, immensely helped me be a better activist, grasping most of this stuff, or at least how it's presented. And Passio's not like, it's not some weird culty thing. Passio's not, there are plenty of problems with, I have several issues with Mark on several subjects. So it's not like some weird culty thing where we're like bowing down to this guy. He's just gotten a really nice presentation together, and he represents it to the fullest, even being vegan, which ruined his career. Him going vegan basically ruined his career, and he still he doesn't give a shit. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, it would be really cool if you would come back and finish watching these other two, and you'll probably be in a better heads. You'll be more prepared for what we're doing then. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm open to it, and I mean, obviously, part of this is just like you've been real supportive of my channel. I also support your channel and what you're doing. So like, y'all are my brothers, my vegan brothers. So
no,
like,
this conversation, like what we're doing now, this is like no one's doing shit like this, like you have to, everyone's too scared to have these conversations, or everyone's too reactive to have these conversations. And like, that's why I think as vegans, and being anarchist vegans, we're in a really cool position to talk to people like you and be like, hey, we're vegan also, but we don't believe in all the state stuff. We think that that's kind of the problem, which is a very different way of thinking when you grow up in the United States. There's not the ones, the centrists in the middle, the assholes that don't vote, that always make it go to the bad guy, and like, trust me, I've been a anti-voting guy for a while, so I've had some pretty ravenous people go after me, blaming Trump for me and stuff like that. But it's really it's
well, you're a lap sitting girl, like
lap sitting girl. Here she is right here. I'm gonna sit on her lap in a minute.
Oh wow. Yeah. I thought it was funny that like you could definitely tell like he was starting to sweat. Like they kind of
when I called him out for not being a real farmer, he stopped talking completely.
Yeah.
And then like 2 minutes after, he went black. He put his thing up. And it's like, if someone came to me and accused me of like not being vegan, I wouldn't just shut up and then disappear. Like, whoa, bro. And then at the end, remember, he's all, hey, Allie, like fucking, I want to debate Allie. And he's all, bye-bye. Yeah. See, we were watching it last night. Jeremy was like, ew. All, what a gross dude. Gross chauvinist old man. Oh, like, hey, I like Allie. Jeffrey's
I know.
Yeah, he's hilarious. He wants nothing to do with me anymore.
I'm sure. Like, well, like you're gonna have that problem because if you show yourself to be competent in a debate, then people are gonna be afraid to engage with you on it.
You know what? You know what's funny too? Doing all that stuff, I didn't get any fucking followers. They don't promote it. They don't. Not not a single carnist that I've debated told their people about the debate. They know there's a big chance that they're going to lose, so they don't tell their people, and their people aren't going to follow a vegan. So I did all those debates, didn't get any followers.
Well,
Like
I noticed
I got like maybe a handful of vegans that somehow saw it, but like there are no vegans hanging. There's only a couple vegans hanging out on Garland's page, so it's like you really have to want to put the effort in to do that shit, because you're really getting nothing back from it.
Well, you promoted your debate with the Gaps lady, and I also remember at the very end you gave her the chance to shout out her channel. You were very polite about it. You said you want to shout out where people can find you, that sort of thing. Yeah, you were a gracious host, honestly. I mean, she was a guest in this debate.
And the comments are full of people being like, oh my God, he's so disrespectful. He kept interrupting her, wouldn't let her talk. Well, bro, I let her talk for 57 minutes before I said anything. I didn't even ask her to start talking. I wanted to talk about something else, not vegan. I don't want to hear your opinions of vegan. I know you're an anti-vegan. I've heard them all before. And she didn't say anything I haven't heard 1,000 times before. They all have the same script. They're all being paid to say the same fucking thing. It's unbelievable.
I like the point you made. Like, hey, I've been researching your work, and you actually promote eating vegetables, but now you
no, you don't. She used to promote juicing like crazy. Now she doesn't. She used to promote bone broth. Now she doesn't. It's not bone broth. It's like, oh, so I've been nailing all the things that bother you, and she's done bone broth, but bone broth is full of vegetables. It's vegetable broth with bones in it.
So it's like
she had to get rid of it to do beef stock. Remember, she's all, I don't do bone broth. You're the bone broth doctor, lady, but now it's beef stock because it's not carnivore. Because it's not carnivore, and that's where she's getting her money from, is the carnivore crowd. Dude, there's 600 Gap groups on Facebook. 600 Gaps groups.
It's funny that they like to say that vegan is a fad diet. Like carnivore just sprang up out of nowhere.
God.
Keto's the fad.
Dude, remember the first time you saw the carnivore doctor on Rogan? It wasn't that long ago. And we were like, this dude's insane, eating only meat. And now everyone does it. And you don't think there's any hidden hands controlling things? Come on, man. That's brainwashing 101. Yeah. Joe Rogan, he's a brainwashing master. His controllers are brainwashing billions of people with his content.
If Mark was on Joe's show, that would be great.
Oh, they would never have him on the show.
No.
Joe wouldn't know what to say. Joe would have no idea what to say. Just like Sam Tripoli had no idea how to engage with Mark.
I think people aren't that smart. Right? I don't think Joe's that sophisticated.
No, he's not. Neither is Elon Musk.
Yeah, they're not sophisticated. I just think people are dumb.
No, dude.
I hate to say that, but
the Joe Rogan, Elon Musk debate, not debates, but the interviews. It's the two fucking retards, like literally, like
talking shit,
rubbing two brain cells together between the two of these guys, and everybody's all, oh my God, that was the most based thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm like,
I know.
I was like, I'm unbelievably bored. These guys are not even like at least nerds. You can like listen to some nerds sometimes and be impressed by how nerdy they are. You don't get that from those two. There's nothing impressive about what he's saying. He's just talking. He's using vocabulary from like 60s era sci-fi books, like photon prosmagulator, like just unbelievably stupid. Like the dude's just laughing at us.
Well, and I like this, to me, this kind of cuts against like these master puppeteers a little bit, because I really feel like Elon Musk was just propped up by people who were dumb and got obsessed with everything Elon Musk did. And we wouldn't have had Elon Musk Obviously, he would have still existed and been a billionaire, maybe the richest man on the planet. But
Joe Rogan owns a big part of it, SpaceX, or not SpaceX, Tesla.
Does he?
And so he promotes Elon and Tesla all day on his show, any chance he gets.
Yeah.
Like once you start seeing it, dude, he has McDonald's. McDonald's shows up at a show once a week. They just have McDonald's all over his table. It's like holy shit. But he's carnivore. Yet he's eating McDonald's. And everybody in the world thinks he's on carnivore, but he's eating McDonald's on his podcast once a week. It's like, oh my god.
So it's not carnivore if you have a piece of bread, right? You don't have if you have the bun for the burger, it's not carnivore.
Nope,
and if you have a pickle on there,
with a
not
lettuce.
Carnivore.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but where's Lubass? Lubass was saying hamburgers are 85% plant-based because it's mostly because the meat's the smallest part.
What happened to Lubass? He was going strong for a while.
He went to lubricate.
He went to go lube his ass. Lubass.
I suppose.
Lubass used to be obese and then he got on carnivore and lost a bunch of weight, but he's just like a loose skin guy now.
Oh god.
But those dudes never lose the loose skin because the loose skin is just fat. It's still fat, so it's just this fat layer of skin that's just, like they need to lower the fat if they're going to lose the fat, but they don't. So they're just these floppy, it's like a skeleton with this floppy fat skin sack on it. And it's like, sure, yeah, you lost some weight, but you're lowering your quality of life. You're lowering your that's why all those guys get on TRT and steroids, and then they're on that the rest of their lives, and that shortens their life.
Yeah.
But Joe Rogan looks amazing, right?
I don't
he
think
looked
so.
better
He
when
looks
he was
unhealthy to me.
I think he's only like 10 years older than me or something. I don't know, but his face is like that steroid face. You start getting all these rolls and your skin's all red and he's all fat because he does too much ab exercises and he's on TRT and human growth hormone. So he gets this big fat stomach. But he's only like 4'9".
Yeah,
Wow.
but he's like the face of masculinity and incel young men, apparently.
Yes.
So that's the fan base. It's the incel young men.
Yep.
And Garland was one, and he became a incel young man who became an incel old man.
Yeah. So after we did that debate, he vanished for 3 months, and he came back with like white hair.
Really?
Like he had kind of like darkish hair, and then he came back and he had like white hair. And I was like, I kept hitting him up. I'm like, Garland, did you die? Like, what happened? And I got no response from him. Me and that Jason John Schwartz guy, I hit him up. We were super worried about him. And then he came back and he looked like he had a stroke or something.
He might have.
He was so wrapped up because after we did those debates and he conceded, he went on this crazy, making all these videos and staying up for 10 hours doing live streams. I think he had like some sort of breakdown, or his wife left him. I don't know if he was even married. He seemed to have a lot of time on his hands for a farmer. 10-hour streams. Like, aren't you supposed to tend your goats, bro? Anyway, that was 3 hours. Thanks for coming by, man. I know you were live streaming earlier today too, huh?
Who are you? Me? No, I wasn't. No,
you living with that old guy?
Oh, are you
The
saying like
guy?
Oh, no, I did an interview with him a couple days ago. I just put it out this afternoon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That dude's badass.
He's great. He's really great.
He's in Vegas?
Yeah.
You're gonna hit him up if we ever go there.
Yeah, for sure. He
cool.
seems like a really nice guy. We have a couple of mutual friends, so I was hearing about him before I ever met him. And yeah, he's just really genuine and nice. It really comes through in the interview. But I thought you might be interested in that because you've taken an interest in Christianity and veganism. So yeah, you might want to check out his book because it's really more geared towards activists and like how to talk to people, but he goes through the different verses and
Dope. Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome.
So yeah, if anybody watching is interested in that, it's a book called Vegans versus the Verses.
Vegans versus the Verses.
Yeah, and
what's
it's
his name?
Stephen Lee August.
Stephen Lee August.
Yeah,
he's like a hippie Vegas durian writer.
Yeah, kind of.
So.
Yeah, looks great. He's 63 years old, and he's got 63? He's got like
golden head of hair,
gray hair, yeah. golden locks, yeah.
Got the fuck up.
And he spent his life as a juggler. Like he was like a entertainer for most of his life. So he's like real good with people. He's a magician, you know, he's just like, and he led like a rock star life. Like, that's why I'm saying you and he would probably have a lot you could talk about.
That's right.
Convince Wei Shang to come, man. Come on.
Yeah, I was gonna get him on the show.
Yeah,
to be cool.
I'll talk to Wayne.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Wayne.
Yeah, he's I think he's out of the country right now, but yeah, he's
man, I don't even know what I would ask Wayne. I'd need your help.
Well, we have, you know, while I'm on your show, like I'd love to just like promote what just happened. Like there was a Vox piece, like if y'all read Vox, VOX, there was like this great piece that came out, expose about an investigation. And Wayne put out a video. So if you go to Wayne's channel, like he did a nice like 10-minute video about this guy from Mountaire Foods, Mountaire Chicken, which is the 4th largest chicken producer in the world. Speaking of people who pull the strings, my friend, like this is a guy who like was part of the family. You know about the family in DC? I bet you know about them. And yeah, he like funds the prayer breakfast. Anyway, this guy is a chicken tycoon.
Yeah.
And a huge funder of Donald Trump and Republican, Christian kind of right-wing causes. So yeah, really interesting. I think the story is called, it's like still trending in their top stories. So if you go to vox.com,
I'll check that out.
Yeah. But yeah, that was just wild stuff. That's if you had Wayne on the podcast or on your channel, I would definitely ask him about that. And Ridgeland Farms, the Beagles, because that's a lot happening right now too.
Yeah. I remember when he was on with Rams, I was just like, whoa, this dude's fucking rad. Like, there aren't that many dudes like that guy around.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
Like, there's a couple dudes, like old hippie NorCal liberal dudes that are pretty rad activists that are kind of like unknown. I don't know if you watched maybe 5 episodes ago, I had a guy named Jack Gashite on.
No.
Old hippie dude, NorCal. They're activists that they're like all the cattle farmers are basically killing all the elk, the native elk in Northern California, killing them through legislation. These endangered elk just to get grazing land. And the grazing land, they're not even supposed to be on it. And they've just stayed on it for the last 80 years. And like all this terrible shit. These guys are like pretty badass. They have a show called, the guy, it's Jack Gashite. And then the other guy, Skylar, his channel is called Watching Humans. I think Tuesday mornings they go live and they're fucking awesome activists. Definitely check them out.
Nice.
But yeah, it's hard. It's interesting. I don't know. It's weird when you finally find someone like that. It's like, holy crap, you know, like there's not much of us out here.
Yeah.
You know, that's why my channel is so small. You know, it's like people all interview or go on shows that have like big channels and they're like, why is your channel so small? And I'm like, well, vegans are only 2% of the population and vegans are going to see my channel, so that means I'm stoked with the 20 people that I have that watch the show, you know.
Yeah, same. When I do lives, it's like max like 10-11 people, and I'm pretty grateful. Like Honestly, for me, it's been like more quality over quantity. I have like people like you coming in the streams, like, so
Yeah.
I'm stoked because I've got other activists that I look up to, and I knew about you before I started doing YouTube because I had seen the Garland Farms debates, and so yeah, I'm pretty psyched about it. But yeah, same issue. I'm at like 300 some subscribers, and it's slow building.
I'm stoked.
But
Darren and Alicia are hanging out over there. Alicia's awesome. She's
Oh,
been
yeah.
on like every one of my shows for the last 20 shows, I think. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's been popping into my streams. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. She went vegan on my show. It was pretty
Oh,
rad.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
How did that come about? That's got to be a good story.
Through natural law, bro.
Oh yeah.
So
There you go.
I was vegan before I found natural law, but all these people that are hanging out on my show went vegan because of Mark Passio and natural law. So it's been really cool, you know, trying to, you know, like bring in new people, because I have all these rad examples, you know, like Alicia just like did a fast and went vegan, and she's lost like 30 pounds or something, and she looks 20 years younger, and she's, you know, she's having all the energy, you know, has all this energy, and she just went in the store the other day and walked by the meat section and almost threw up, you know, like all the stuff, and it's like happening live. It's really cool. But it's been dope, and man, it took 50 episodes till things really started going, you know. Wow. Like at least like now I know every show I do is getting 300. I'll occasionally get a little bit more, you know, where before it was just like nothing forever, but I had to do 50 shows before things started really like, oh hey, new people are coming around, and like, you know, like, hey, you know, people are actually watching, maybe, you know, like I don't, YouTube could just be lying to us, but like it seemed like it's just, you just got to keep going and just keep doing what you do, because it's totally watchable. Oh, Alicia's here. And you know, it just takes consistency, really, like on YouTube. Hey, Alicia.
Hey.
You spying on us?
No, I've been listening in the background. I've been busy. I've just been like, okay, so I just threw something presentable on. I've been doing housework.
Well, I have a question for you, Alicia, because like I said, with those 2 hours of Mark Passio, watching it, I was trying to do it through the lens of the politics, but I was just hearing animal ag, because when I'm being challenged of like, there's a system you have, and he was really priming someone to question their own beliefs and recognize like your beliefs aren't, you know, what essentially matter, natural law. Like I was just hearing animal ag the whole time. So was it the same for you, even in this early stage of Passio's talk? Were you starting to question that, or did it come later?
It came later.
Yeah.
And it'd been years and years and years of following Mark. And, you know, I'm still, it's a never ending learning process. And I had just been taking Mark's How to Be the New Media Tech course. I think it was just in the last few months that it ended. And I would say for about 6 months, it was niggling at me. And I started to tell my friends, it was a soulful thing. So there's different triggers. And then I came to VGT Live, and then it just, there was it was just right time. And Allie on her occult revival, shout out to Allie, because she does some great work too. And as I came and was, you know, ensconced with the group, I was watching, and there was the video with Mark, and it's as simple as the sentient beings. But to me, you know, the building blocks of how you come to find the natural law and how you come to veganism can be at different stages. It doesn't really matter. And so, you know, credit to Jeffrey and Allie, because it was the right time, right place. I was ready. Mark's video, Allie putting it up there, sounds like ridiculous, but it just was resonating with me at that time. And it was the no harm to sentient beings. And I just went, the real tipping point, and to be clear, I'd actually gone vegan maybe 5-6 years ago, and I did it for about 9 months, and I was lacking in energy, but I was also lacking in support and awareness. So I've got different building blocks now. And I went to some health food store, and the lady said, oh, you need to have beef. And I walked myself to the store, I got beef, and then I went, oh, I feel better. So I understand that concept, but I was getting it wrong. I was like high oil. Anyways, despite all the work, I was getting it wrong. So that's on me, not on plants. And so coming now so my pillar then for doing it was for nutrition. And if I'm being really honest, when I surrounded myself back in 2017-18 at the time, the vegans, my interpretation was, geez, these guys are a bunch of angry people. I have to say, like, holy crap. And so, you know, you're already there. I'm not preaching to the choir. I'm not teaching you to suck eggs, but as a, you know, again, coming back into this now, but for different reasons. Then it was nutrition. It wasn't about the animals. It wasn't about natural law. It was about nutrition. And so now when recently with the click point and Mark's video, again, thank you, Ali, and thank you to Slav for bringing me to VGT Live. I always give him that shout out. But what was I just saying? Sorry, I digressed with my thank yous, but it was about domination over sentient beings. And then I realized the big clicking point as well was, oh my God, if I'm subscribing to this, I am signing up for this whole slavery platform. I am signing up for domination, and hashtag frickin' duh. That's what's going on with the world. You know, when you talk about government, when you talk about all these things, and it just clicked and went, mother of God, I cannot participate in this slavitude model. And, you know, and certainly not to animals, you know, and being fellow sentient beings. Who am I to say who dominates over whatever? That was the clicking point for me. And it's going to be a continual evolution. And the guys witnessed that. There was another person, Scott Gordon, shout out to him, ex-Scientologist, doing great shadow work support for people as well. Like, for someone who can come, there's just brilliant people that come on this channel. And he was talking about water fasting. And I just went, I'm ready. I'm done. I did 2-week water fast, and I just completed, inclusive of that 2-week water fast, which brings you into autophagy, which is super intense healing, not for the weak of heart, FYI. And you just go through everything: soul work, shadow work, cleaning out. I mean, look, and I'm talking about now cleaning my house. Like, I'm doing other clearing out. Took my Wayne Dyer books out just now, my Marianne Williamson. And it's like, toss those after this. It's like, good reminder, you know, Course in Miracles, bye. And then I did juice feasting, you know, with the likes of John Rose and Dr. Robert Morse, which sorry, what's her, Patricia, who's on the channel as well, phenomenal vegan, and the one who was a tipping point for Mark, right?
There's a college professor that's on the show, Patty Lager, who's vegan. Badass.
Shout out to Patty.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all that to say, it was. I keep digressing with my thanks. I want to give thanks to people who help me. What?
Anarchism is no masters, no rulers. You know, it's the natural state of the world, where animals obviously were not slaves and humans weren't slaves. So
right, and then just to complete, and then I give you give you it all back. Sorry, is that okay?
Yeah.
Jeffrey? Canadian. We live by sorry. Sorry, we're sorry. And then I did juice feasting, and I totally recommend people look at it. Doesn't matter, you know, if everybody has different opinions, but I have lost over 66 pounds, and I just went to an appointment last week. And the person who saw me a year ago, I opened the door for them. They were late for the appointment, and they walked right by me. They didn't even recognize me, and I howled inwardly. And then they're like, oh, I'm eating here. And I'm like, yeah, I just opened the door for you. And they're like, shit, you do not look like the same person. Like, didn't recognize me. And this is now a thing. Like, it is that kind of, it gives you this glow. It, and I have to do the penance of getting rid of all of this animal debris that I spent my life building up. Petrified poop. Talk to me about poop anytime. Sure. Jeffrey always laughs. But, you got to get this out and you got to do the penance. So in short, that was the journey. It's a continued journey, and it doesn't stop without shadow work as well, like really holding your feet to the fire and some cold, hard truths, which will continue. So I hope that helps.
That's awesome. Well, good for you. And that's got to feel good to you, Jeffrey. Like you're creating this awesome space that has facilitated all this change in people. You changed Alicia's life and Allie, I guess. Yeah. Amazing.
No, Allie was vegan before I was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's definitely cool having, I mean, Alicia's been a pretty big part of why I kept going for a while, because it was just me and her. Like, there was probably 4 episodes that were just me and her. And it's boring to do the show alone. Like I've always done a panel show just because it's fun. You never know who's going to show up. There's regulars that can just come hang out. It's easier. You don't have to sit there and talk the whole time. But like, there was 4 or 5 shows where she was just the only one there, and we would have a good show where I probably would have just cut out. We'd have a really good show, or just get into something we didn't expect to get into. And like some of like the Darren thing, we have this thing with Darren who's hanging out. Darren used to be our enemy.
Yeah.
Like we had some crazy beef with Darren for a while, and Darren's our best guy now. Like he's on my network now. Like, because we went through we did some serious shadow work together. Like live as it happened. Instead of everyone just ignoring it, we like dealt with it and did like like some pretty awesome conflict resolution on the show. And we're like an inseparable team now. And we're a part of, Mark has his own network, and he's kind of, it's been overrun by flunkies. And so we've been kind of critiquing them for a while. And it's been a lot of fun because there's so many fakers. And so like, that's why it's been cool, Jeremy, because you seem like you're super legit. You seem like you're our people. Because there are so many people that just aren't. And we've had so many people come on the show for a while and leave and never come back because of like one thing we disagreed on, honestly, there's people that I would call my friends that have just left because like they didn't like one take I had one day, and just couldn't handle it and just left the show and never came back. And like
I would argue that's a trigger. They were triggered.
People that are vegan, people are so emotionally sensitive these days that they just can't handle having one disagreement. Yet we were able to talk for several hours and not, get flustered at all and continue the conversation because we know it's actually worth doing instead of just staring at the wall,
Yeah, I can second the thing you said about just like, when you're doing a stream, like Wayne and I actually did a podcast that was like about male loneliness and like how that was leading to like these shootings and stuff. And I was telling him how I had like just done my first gaming stream where I had like one person and I was trying to describe to him how my mood is really affected by whether or not like I'm on my own or someone's actually like in there interacting with me. He said to me, I bet you the circuit breaker for that is 1. And I said, yeah, there's this guy, Pebble. Shout out Pebble. He was in my Alien stream as I was gaming, and he was just laughing along with me as I kept dying. And that just like brightened my mood so much. So yeah, like for YouTube, like when you're streaming and stuff, it makes a big difference because sometimes I'll be on there. No, I might be alone, or I might have some people who are just lurking, never say hey or anything. And I'm just like, what am I doing here? Like, this is kind of all about interaction and community. So,
yeah. Yeah, and we've talked like a lot of it's been really cool with the open show too, because rando dudes will show up and be like, hey, like I just went to the doctor and they told me it's not good. And I need to, like we've had a lot of these conversations with dudes just popping up just because I just did a lot of these panel shows and I'm the vegan guy, so they just know, and like that's, dude, if that happens once, where some guys like, hey, I need some help to save my life, and they actually kind of half listen the whole time. They actually have a little bit to go on, or at least have one person to talk to. Like there's that guy, San Joaquin Valley Transparency. He's always in the chat. He's got 800,000 followers, right? And he has to go vegan or else he's gonna die. He's got bad problems health wise, and he's just like, I try to talk to him about the moral stuff and he just does not want to hear it. He's all, look, bro, I'm not into the animal activism stuff. I need to do this just to live. And I'm like, all right, well, we'll help you with that, but I'm still going to talk about the other stuff because I think you'll, if once you do this, you'll obviously gravitate towards it. But it's just been a lot of fun, like having someplace, and when you do a consistent show, people know Jeff's probably going to be on Sunday, and I'm going to go ask him about, like how to start eating vegan. And I tell these guys like, dude, just, try on the weekends, start on the weekends, just start eliminating things slowly. And like, cause they don't know, it's overwhelming when your doctor tells you got to change your life like that. It's absolutely overwhelming. So if doing my show just like helped a couple of these guys or whatever, that's like, it's worth doing. I'm not looking for millions of views, like I don't care that I don't have that many followers and that, like I lose followers every time I post something, like hilarious, but like, I don't really care because I'm doing what I believe in. And I and if a couple of people are into it, and there's always been a couple people, so it's been fun. But I can't believe I've done like 60 episodes. Like it's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, well, I like the format too. I like how you just open up the StreamYard to anybody who wants to hop on. That's a cool idea that I hadn't really even thought of, and
you should
maybe
start doing
something
it.
that I'll do at some point. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and it's just the rawest, most true form of media where it's like, okay, let's fucking talk to it face to face. No Facebook where you're gonna lie.
Yeah, right.
You're gonna bend the truth when you're in the typing whatever. Face to face, you tell me these arguments to my face, and they never do. They show up here, they're super nice. They'll, I actually agree with you. I actually respect what you're doing, But in the Facebook, they're like fucking, they want us dead, literally. They want us dead. So it's funny but it's really hard to get them here because none of them really want to talk. Like I was saying earlier, like none of the carnists promote when they do debates with me because they know they might lose. They don't say shit.
Guess it helps if you have like no reputation to lose, like I don't really care. Like what if somebody sees me flopping on YouTube? I don't really care.
Nope. And it takes certain level of life experience to get to that point.
Yeah, probably.
Like it's like I honestly do not like, I'm vegan, I'm a cyclist, I'm into crypto, I'm so fucking annoying, like I don't give a shit. Because like I've done shit in my life, like I've done a bunch of cool shit. So I don't have to like beg for attention, beg for acceptance from randos on the internet. Like I used to be a fucking rock star. Like I've done a bunch of shit. I've sailed around the world practically. Like I've done a lot of traveling. Like there's stuff. And then like these dudes all haven't left their neighborhood in their lifetime. And they're like, fuck people in Central America, all those brown people. And it's like, dude, have you even been there? It's fucking paradise down there. The nicest people in the world. Anarchy's going on down there. People just don't know. Most ignorant, the most based people I know have been like pretty well traveled. Like it's hard to, the dumbest people I know haven't left their county. It's kind of like a weird pattern. I don't know.
Yeah, I like one of the, this is kind of dark, but I told my mother this one time. I said, like if I die, I've had a good life. Like, and that was just such a great point to reach in my life where like now I feel like I'm playing with house money, like other people have passed on in my life and I keep going, like I'm like, I have 10 more years than that person, 12 more years than that person. So like this is all bonus. This is all extra. So like to me, like it's very liberating. It's freeing because you don't have to worry so much about like, oh, am I gonna die? I'm gonna, I'm gonna end up alone or some bullshit. Like, no, I had a good run. I'm good.
Yeah,
Not
I've
to
lived
say
the
it's
life
over.
of like 5 to 10 other dudes. I've lived the life of like 5 other dudes at least, maybe 10 other dudes. So it's like I've
Yeah.
been since I was 30. I think I was like, I'm like whatever. Like I'm not like I've done shit. There's nothing, obviously I don't want to die, but I don't fear it. I don't think like, oh, I've missed out on so much. I shouldn't go yet or whatever. Yeah, like it's definitely like a level, and just not caring of what randos fucking think. Like so many people haven't had enough hugs, so they have to like project that shit. And it's just I don't know, it's weird, but they're just all about just like, oh, getting popular or be socializing. And it's like, dude, I partied fucking 6 nights a week for fucking 15 years in Hollywood. Like, I do not care about socializing anymore. Like, I do not care about doing the who's cool thing, the like social hierarchy, pecking order. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm just interested in doing work now and trying to teach, what I've learned, what others have put together. Teach the truth, really. The truth. Yeah.
And to that end,
Smackdown.
you're
on
both
libs.
you're both living a fulfilled life. Like every day you're working your passion, your mission, your ethos, you're backing it up with action, as Mark talked about. And that, that spells, not using magic or anything, but that equals then you're doing your best each and every day. And that's all you can do. You're not sitting on a couch like Netflix and chill and all of that. You're doing it. So
we do a little of that. That's the thing. That's what we were saying earlier. There's the balance. You have to have a balance.
Right.
But I'm talking about balance.
Yeah. And to be clear, like someone sitting on their couch who is depressed and not fulfilled in life might be at that time doing their best. So it's not to say like this is some like, great achievement or anything, but it's just like there's a certain amount of like you've gone through great experiences, but also bad experiences, like when you've taken some L's in life and then you're like, okay, well, I took that L and then I got through that. And so now like I almost feel like I've gone through some things, and like, look, I'm a privileged guy. Other people have gone through like way more hardship than me, but I've gone through some shit where I'm like, okay, that's not going to be topped. Like, I can get through some bullshit. Like we use that, like, standing up to these oppressive systems, like, they're intimidating, right? They're big, but fuck you. Like, I don't care. Like, you're not going to make me feel worse than that situation made me. So whatever.
That's important because that's soul talk. I'm big on soul talk.
Soul talk. Yeah.
Maybe we'll end it on that note.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
Well, cool.
Thanks for inviting me on, Jeffrey.
Yeah, man.
Really
shout
fun.
out your show.
Oh yeah, I put it in the parentheses. You can see it on the screen. It's at Loeb Jeremy, and that's just my YouTube channel. Jeremy Loeb's my name. And I've got that great interview that I put out today, or at least I thought it was cool, with Stephen Lee August. And I've got a lot of interviews. I do a lot of live streams, and I do gaming too, which is probably what's killing my channel because nobody knows what the hell to expect from my channel. But whatever.
That's
I don't care.
My channel's screwed in the same way because I used to be in a band and I have a bunch of kids that follow me because of the band stuff. Right. And then I do all this other shit and my channel goes nowhere because it's just the algorithm doesn't know where to place you.
Right.
But
we're all living
right now, if you started a new channel though and you called it something vegan, you could get 10,000 followers probably within 6 months, easy. If you started a new channel right now and started doing it like the guys on YouTube are doing it that do the videos on how to start it, Yeah, I've been watching the videos. It's pretty gnarly, but YouTube right now, they amped up the views for shorts, and there any new channels getting blown up if you do things by their kind of like the way they want you to do it.
God,
like
I
you
just
could Joey Schwartz it.
Yeah, but I mean, but the other thing though is that living by the algorithm gods and trying to appease them, like I don't even want to get into that game.
Yeah.
I'll probably lose.
Yeah, well, it
because I
doesn't
don't-
matter how many followers you have. If you have good content, people will see your shit and like it.
Right.
But it really doesn't matter. Like the follower count, you know, Joey Schwartz was getting 100,000 views with 20,000 followers, you know, like,
Right.
so it doesn't really matter how many you have. And I've seen dudes with 300 followers get 50,000 views on a video. You know, it just depends on how good the content is. And the algorithm, obviously, but
Or how cringy in the case of Joey Schwartz. You know, you might
yeah,
just have to go full cringe. Maybe that's my next move. Full cringe.
full cringe. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how to do it. That's what that's what YouTube wants you to be cringy about it, basically.
Give me some ideas then.
That's why
I'll have
look
that
at
for the next one.
just look at what Rams is doing. He's got a nice balance because
Mhm.
he's not cringy. So
Right.
he does kind of the cringe stuff, but it doesn't look cringy on him because he's and you have the kind of the same vibe where it's like it would be hard for any of us to be cringy. So that might be the key to it.
Thank you
So
for
I have a
saying
question. If both of you have experienced firsthand this duality of having, you know, your passion point on one end and then another one, which is more cranial. Would you do it again? Would you separate them and have two different channels? What would you do?
I definitely have both of my channels would be bigger if they weren't connected. Because when my channel, when I started it, I was just getting followers from the band I was in, and I was getting like 50 ads. You know, I was getting like 50 followers a month at least, just off of just my videos sitting, and I was barely putting anything up. And the second I started doing a vegan podcast, I lose followers now. But I do a lot of, I post my links a lot of places on Facebook. So I do get organic numbers because I do hustle. I do put my shit out a lot. And when you do the nice thumbnails and you're in 1080 and you do an interview, the shit just like my Joey Schwartz got 2,000. Dr. Natasha will probably get 2,000, which 2,000 is not bad. You know, like I used to get millions of views on my articles when I worked in indie media, but those were different times. The algorithms these days are completely different. They make you work way harder. But yeah, I do a lot of, I tag a lot of people. I tag the right people that I know will watch things. I spam places where I know it'll get hits. It's kind of scummy, but like it's the only way to get organic reach. And also on YouTube, if you start a new channel, you have to do a little bit of advertising, like $10, $20 every once in a while. But you pick you direct it at countries that have small markets. It's a really odd thing, but you're basically like, if you direct your advertising at like Nigeria, India, weird places like that, it will show every English speaking person in that country your video without a doubt. And you'll get a ton of views and followers. But if you direct your advertising money to the USA, you'll get shit. It's kind of weird. Like dudes have figured out how YouTube works, and you can literally have a monetized channel within a week if you do it right. But you have to spend like maybe $100 to get monetized. But you'll end up with a shitload of real viewers too, like people that actually follow you because they like your shit.
Yeah.
So it's
that's really interesting.
It's very complicated. But these dorks on YouTube, if you watch their videos, these like YouTube god guys that like make videos of how to blow your channel up, they've figured it out. And it's always changing. So if you watch the newest ones, you could literally go do it and duplicate the numbers that they get. But again, it's like, you know, do you need that many? Like, do you want to get in that race of just, oh, I just constantly need more followers? You know, like it's not really something you need to do. Or are you spending too much time on that instead of putting out good content, which really matters more? But yeah, thumbnails are really important. Your shit will get out to 10 times as many people as if you have a clean thumbnail. So getting good at like a little some app that's like makes it easy. Cup Ace is one of the best little thumbnail making apps. Allie started on that, but she's making some badass thumbnails these days.
You've been on fire with those.
Yeah, we've been on a tear of some badass fucking
I don't know, my
thumbnails.
My first video on my channel was just a video of me talking for an hour and with the title, "Who the fuck is this guy?" And the whole point was just like, who am I and why should you care? And that did like so well. It got like 2,000.
YouTube loves shit like that. They want you are supposed to be the you in YouTube. It's just supposed to be you and your phone. And like, if you do any kind of stuff like that, that's like, if you started a new channel, you should redo something like that and start off with your you know, just your pitch on what you're going to do. And then you make a very good example of what you're going to do. You do go to you do it to the nines with a super nice thumbnail and all the attributes and all the hashtags and shit in the just nice description. You put it on your new YouTube and you just leave it there. And, you know, a week later, it'll just, it basically, YouTube looks at it. And if you do it the right way, it puts you in the algorithm for that topic, and you'll get a shitload of new people. But I don't know if it's actually worth anything, because I get like I just got paid like $160 from YouTube. That's like might be the most I've ever been paid by them.
For what period of time?
A month.
Hey.
Yeah. But I have 600 videos. Half of them are like videos that like just get views just because it's like the band kids, they just watch the shit all day. So like I have my foot in the door because I used to be in a band. So, but I don't know if I think the foot in the door screwed up my channel. Because I think if I just stayed with that, if I didn't try and mix everything on one channel, because I was hoping that I like more of the Hollywood Undead kids would like get into the vegan stuff, which there has been a couple kids. And then the last several shows I did as like the band guy, I was talking a bunch of shit about veganism to kids, and they were like actually pretty open to it. And I got emailed after a couple times by a couple people asking for recipes and shit. So I was like, oh, I need to be more vocal about this with these kids. Because they actually listen, because they artificially respect me because I used to be in a band.
But also you talked about your journey where you came off the wagon at one point, you know, when you were in that lifestyle, and then you came back to it.
Eating meat and stuff. Yeah. Carnism. Losing my ethics in Hollywood, wrapped up in Hollywood.
But I think that's being raw and real and vulnerable. And I think that is, you know, it's one thing to have been a diehard for X number of years, but to have been lured into it, experienced it, come out, that's like being in a plane in a tailspin and like reversing it. It's like, I think that there's a motivational and a reason to believe factor to it. That's why I'm not upset that I did it before and came back. Like, I'm not upset. I'm all right about it.
You're back. That's all that matters. Is
you're back. Yeah. And you can use that, just like you were alluding to. Like, it's important because you can reach people who did carnivore. I mean,
And that's why it's funny when carnists try and talk to me about like this stuff, because I'm like, bro,
I did. Yeah,
like, I've done everything twice, you know, like I was where you were at, you know, Korean barbecue used to be my favorite thing in the fucking world, you know, like, but yeah, it's funny. People are funny, but it's just consistency, man. Just gotta stay consistent. That's really like anything I've noticed in life. It's definitely, you just got to stay consistent with things, but it's hard to do. because the man's trying to stop you from being consistent in anything. They just want you paying taxes. That's all they want. They just want you focused on paying taxes and
they
not
want it
thinking to
soon. They
yourself.
want it in like 10 days, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Well, cool, guys. I think we put everyone
Thanks,
to sleep.
guys.
Yeah.
Well done, Jeremy.
Oh,
Thanks
you
for
too,
hanging out,
Alicia.
Jeremy.
Thanks for sharing your insight and
When's your next? When you going live again, Jeremy?
I go like just about like 4 times a week, I'd say. So
Every other
probably
day.
tomorrow. I might even game tonight if I don't have stuff in my phone that I need to tend to.
So Sunday, I'm having another show, and we're going to be going over both the debates I did and a bunch of stuff because I've been doing so much stuff. I haven't done so many shows, and the last show I did, I had a whole list of stuff that I was going to go through that I didn't even touch. So next show is going to be pretty fun, but we're mostly going to be going over the big debate, which was hilarious. But yeah, so Sunday,
that it was.
Check out Jeremy's channel. Make sure and sub and hit the notification button.
Thank you.
And we will see you guys next week.
All right, sounds good.
Peace.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Cheers to the people who did wake up and activate and become peers in the great work. Nothing but admiration and thanks. And this forced shadow work has not been for you. It has been for those who did not respond to the fucking call of freedom. And you guys already know that. I don't even need to repeat that. But I will say with my Vienna lager here, cheers to the people who really did the great work. The ones who really activated, the ones who spoke out, the ones who put the message of freedom publicly out into the world through the creation, the creative expression that came from within themselves to publish and communicate it to those in need of that knowledge. You're my brothers and sisters, and you're my peers in the great work, and thank you.